And welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board meeting of Thursday, June 9th, 2011. We'll go around the room and introduce staff and members of the board, starting with Brian.
I'm Brian Rose. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Phil Devanza, Selectman.
Mark Warden.
Gayla Breck, Recording Secretary.
Alan Yaton, Chair.
Tim Redmond, Vice Chair.
John Heichel.
Good evening. Brian, do we have any particular business items that we need to address that I don't currently have in my packet? Any results of the Zoning Board of Adjustment that we need to be advised of?
I will, I guess, start with the Zoning Board of Adjustment. I'll just make you aware there's where's it at? Well, it's a proposed animal processing facility was determined to be a regional impact by the ZBA. That will end up coming to the planning board eventually for a site plan if it gets approved. They continued it to the July 5th meeting, so just kind of be on the lookout for that. There's another item that planning board will need to address probably at the next meeting. A variance was approved for a gentleman to expand his house and add a garage, and he'll need to get a conditional use permit from the planning board in order to add a second driveway. 'Cause that's just the only option really to be able to do if he's going to add a garage. He'll need to do another driveway. So I think those are the only things that maybe really would affect the planning board at this time. Okay. As far as the correspondence, there is in your revised packet, there is an email from Janice Bournival requesting to drop the request for phasing. So you can take a look at that and we can address that when that item comes up on the agenda. There's some comments in there regarding tonight's items from Collis, since he's not going to be able to be here. And then for action, you have a bond agreement for Catamount Ridge Phase 2A that the planning board needs to accept.
Why don't we take care of that while we're at it here?
Okay.
Why don't you have the floor, Brian, to advise us of what the conditions are and what they're requesting?
Well, basically, a few months ago, Scott Bussiere had come to the town requesting for his Phase 2 of the Catamount Ridge project to be split up into two separate phases, essentially adding another phase and making Phase 2 kind of smaller on both ends.
And we approved that, right?
And the planning board approved that. I don't remember exactly when what the date was on that, but he's basically ready to start moving on that. He's met with the engineering department. He's done his pre-construction meetings and everything, and this is kind of the one item left over that we had that just needed to be taken care of. And it's a bond for $188,000. It's a bond for $188,045.75, and really it's in the form of a bond agreement, and then an actual check of that sum, $188,045.75, was given to the town by the insurer, who is Dennis Demers. It's just a private individual. It's not a bank this time. But nonetheless, we've received the money, and we'll be putting it into an escrow account for the duration of time until they finish the construction and the town accepts the road as completed. So,
Tim?
Brian, do we have an escrow account established for that project too that we can draw on for engineering inspections and such from our engineering department?
Yeah, he also submitted money for that as well, so I believe it was $2,000. And I know that the amount requested had been $2,400, and I let engineering know that it was a little bit short. And I think that's something typically that they handle, but, and I know maybe your wife deals with that as well, but they did submit some money, and that is in an account now for engineering review.
So is that acceptable with the Public Works Department?
I haven't talked to Megan since any of that happened, so.
Well, as long as, if it's good with the Public
But-
Works Department, it's all right, but that has to be settled.
Yeah, what she told me was that she would talk to him the next day. She was gonna be meeting with him, and I just haven't heard anything from if she talked to him or not.
Okay.
So.
I would assume if we were in a motion to approve that we'd want to have some amendment to a motion about drawing against that for engineering review, and if it exceeds that amount, that the developer will then ante up any additional monies required. Phil?
Yeah, I'm a little confused on this. This is a private individual forwarding the amount of money. Where is the money? Where is it held?
It's held by the town in
In what form?
an escrow account.
It's a check in American dollars, given to the
No, I
town.
understand. In the past, when we did this, we took passbook accounts.
I believe somebody has put up real money on behalf of
No, I
Allstate
understand.
Builders.
Now, this is, okay, but this has gone through finance and everything.
Yes.
Okay,
Submitted
that's why
to
I'm asking,
finance.
because this is different, and I just want to make sure, because in the past, we've only done cash like this as a passbook account. We took that passbook money as cash, and that's why I'm just questioning this to make sure that
Oh,
we
okay.
have.
All right.
Follow what I'm saying.
Agreed, yeah, I follow,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, any other discussion in reference to this subject? Because they're gonna ask for a vote. I'll need a motion and a second. Anybody care to make a motion to accept this bond agreement with stipulations about drawing against it for the escrow account for engineering review? It sh- it
I'll
should-
make a motion to accept the amount of the bond as noted on the paperwork at $188,045.75. In addition to the amount deposited for the engineering, which has been said to be $2,000, on the condition that everything is agreed to by the Public Works Department, then I move that we accept this.
Second.
Motion by Tim, seconded by Phil. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, there's a line on that bond agreement for Town of Goffstown to sign, so if you would sign that, and then also sign the,
After the meeting, get me to
Road-
sign,
the
get me to
road-
sign that because I'll have to borrow your indelible ink pen.
oh,
I'm using indelible ink pencils tonight.
Well, Brian, I would question us signing it. Why would we sign this? Wouldn't someone from the finance department be signing this, not the planning board?
I think it would be sufficient to
Ah,
have
I
some.
disagree.
Well.
I would want to check on that before.
If it requires my signature, Brian, get in touch with me.
All right,
If it's the finance director,
I
just
think
have
the
him
finance
take care of
director
it.
would be more,
And,
because he's the one in charge of the money, not us.
Mr. Chair?
because my plane tickets are good for tomorrow.
John?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, John?
Because of my newness here, I never dealt with this before. Could you let me know, and the people out there, is this an interest-bearing account? And what is the real purpose of that? There's a bond that's been purchased, and there's also been $188,000.
No, that is.
No.
That is the, that is the
In lieu of an
bond.
insurance bond from a bonding company.
Okay.
An individual has put up real American dollars in the sum of $188,000 and change. And they cannot utilize that money. It's actually been given to the town. It gets returned if he completes the work in accordance with plans and engineering, and we don't have to draw against any of those sums to repair or complete the work in accordance with the Public Works Department's directives. Yes,
To
Mark.
follow up, it's kind of a funny number, ends in 75 cents, so who comes up with that dollar amount?
The Public Works Department typically, I believe, goes over these figures and decides what the surety requirement would be in the event that the developer did not complete the work satisfactorily. Then the town has that fund to draw against to pay to have the work done to our
Completed.
standards.
Thank you.
And I will stand corrected if Megan would like to
Is this
correct me.
Blackbriar that we're talking?
No, we're talking
No.
about Catamount.
Oh,
Allstate.
Catamount,
Bond.
Yeah, we do a bond estimate for each site, and it has to do with the length of the road, the pavement, the drainage that's installed. And there's a whole breakdown, which Brian gets, he probably just didn't give you guys.
No, I
that, but
didn't
There's a
include
whole
that.
spreadsheet that shows you the total amount
Okay.
and how we came up with it.
Phil?
Yeah, I just, there's one thing that bothers me a little bit about the wording. And if I can just bring this up. In the middle of the first paragraph, it gives the person's name, address, Manchester, New Hampshire, hereinafter called insurer, are held and firmly bound unto the town of Goffstown, New Hampshire. And in the penal sum, it gives out the amount of money. I just have a concern, the way this is worded, where it says, are held and firmly bound unto the town of Goffstown. To me, it's not clear that this cash amount of money is being given to the town of Goffstown. Or is this being held by this person as the insurer, and he's giving us his word that he's holding this money for the town of Goffstown?
What was the document, Brian? Was it a certified bank check, or what was it?
It was, yeah,
What?
it was a certified check.
It's a certified bank check in the sum of $188,000. That is cash.
Okay. And it was
Is
to the
that
town of
correct?
Goffstown.
Brian didn't answer.
Yes,
Yes, you did.
Well, you stopped him. I wanted to hear him say it.
it was, no, I said it was a certified check.
Okay,
Excuse me.
thank you.
Whack me. Anyways, okay, but it is a certified check is what I understand.
Okay, and the only entity that has control over that money at this point in time is the town of Goffstown.
Yes.
Correct.
Town of Goffstown can go in and take money out of that account, and this person that put the money up doesn't have to sign off on anything.
Well, you know, we have to send notice to him prior to
Right.
doing that if we're gonna try to take it out
Right.
sooner than that, but,
Okay.
yeah.
I believe there's a specific bond procedure if it becomes to that point.
No, there is a procedure to follow, but I just wanted to be clear. I wanted to make sure that it's clear, because that's why we only took passbook accounts where we controlled the passbook. And on that passbook, it said Town of Goffstown
All
in the
right.
past.
Alan, can we
Yes.
see if this bond agreement was reviewed by the finance administrator, the town administrator?
It was reviewed by the town attorney,
It was, okay.
yes.
He reviewed,
He
Yes.
reviewed it and made
reviewed
some,
this bond agree, okay. he-
made some minor changes, and we forwarded that to the
Okay,
applicant.
thank you.
So are we, end of questions for the moment?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm fine. Thank you.
All right. I mean, this is the first time I've seen this arrangement too.
Mm.
And I suspect it has to do with the insurance industry, which is running scared everywhere right
Okay.
now. Okay. Anything else, Brian?
That's it.
Okay, then let's go go backwards to the minutes of May 26, 2011. Members of the board, any additions, corrections? And if not, I'd like a motion for, and a second for approval.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Phil to approve the minutes of May 22nd. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mark. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes have,
I abstain.
okay, Mark abstains. Motion carries. Minutes have been approved. I don't think item 5 on our action items will come forward later on this evening, which is the that Brian had received some revised plans.
Yeah, it's part of number
Is anybody interested in CIP minutes of 6/2/11? Are those going to be sent to us, if there are minutes, Brian, as members of the board, since it's in our purview?
Say again, you want CIP minutes?
Well, I'm just going to ask the board members if they'd like to see the capital improvement program minutes as they are generated, just like we see the
They're
ZBA.
available online.
They are available online.
I
They're
can,
online and they're available. You can download them if you want. Anybody can go right on the website,
Okay,
CIP.
so it's just as
That's
a,
sufficient to me.
that's sufficient?
Saves us another email in our box.
And a bunch of printed,
Yeah, and a waste of paper.
Oh, I don't want to print them, believe me, that's,
CIP minutes.
electronic is what I was looking for, not hard copies. I mean, just like we get the zoning board, we don't get hard copies, but we get it emailed, so if we want to review it, we can. Okay. All right. Seeing no other immediate business at the hand, we'll move into our regularly scheduled items on our agenda this evening, starting with new business. This is map 3, lot 62-1, a completeness review and site plan conditional use permit hearing for a proposal to erect 4-pole athletic field lighting system to the existing football stadium located at St. Anselm College on St. A's Drive, Zone Residential -2. Ryan?
thank you, Mr. Chair. This project is basically a project to add AstroTurf to the existing field. And the application before you tonight is really to approve a conditional use permit to install 4 light poles on the football stadium. The zoning ordinance allows the planning board to approve conditional use permits for athletic fields. And so that's basically why it's before you tonight. Now, due to the fact that these are tall light poles, the 2 poles, 2 of the poles will be 80 feet tall, and the other 2 will be 70 feet tall. Due to the fact that they're that tall and they will be producing a generous amount of light, we took it upon ourselves to notify the Manchester Planning Board and the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission in case the planning board determined that it was a regional impact. After notifying them, we did hear back from Manchester Planning Board that they brought it to their board and they determined that it would not be a significant impact to their residents. And also seeing the fact that there is quite a distance of woodland between this football stadium and the residences nearby. Planning staff feels that this would not pose a regional impact, so that's my recommendation to you in this report. It's in the zoning ordinance, it's section 8.4, if you were wanting a reference regarding the lighting. And that states the planning board may grant exceptions within Goffstown and Pinardville and Grassmere Village centers as defined by the planning board. And here's where it's applicable here, and for outdoor recreational facilities and for historic purposes by conditional use permit.
Okay.
So, that's basically on the table. Now, in addition to that, I have received a few comments from Megan regarding drainage, and she may want to address that with the board. So, I'll turn the time back over to you, and if you want to hear what Megan's comments are, then I'll let you deal with that.
Okay. I think there are a couple of business items we need to address here. It's in the packet you received. It's not in the amended packet tonight, so. We need to, is there any other work, Brian, that's proposed for the campus since it spreads between both Goffstown and Bedford, that would require the town of Bedford to approve?
I believe Bedford is on board with this, and that may be something that, well, I haven't gotten a formal letter yet from them, but I believe they were working on that, and they were going to be submitting something. Now, the applicant, I know, has been working with the town of Bedford, sort of in conjunction with this, because there's another project that St. A's will have coming to the planning board in a couple of weeks to do a conversion of their parking lot in the center part of their project into a park open space. And they're gonna be working with the town of Bedford to replace all that parking on Bedford's property. And so I think that's somewhat separate from this project, but also goes along with just the overall general plan of what St. A's is trying to accomplish for their overall campus.
Okay, so are you suggesting that it's that future parking relocation most likely would require some type of hearing here in Goffstown as well as Bedford, because the connecting devices are Bedford side, are on the Goffstown side of the town line?
I'm not sure that it would require a hearing here, but it's up to the planning board if they would want to see that. I mean, the property is in Bedford where the parking would be, but the access would be through Goffstown, so I'm not sure if that warrants a public hearing or not.
Okay. Neither do I at the time, at the moment. So it'd be something of interest that I'm sure this board would like to be kept abreast of
We can definitely
as
do
things
that.
as things move forward.
In lieu of doing a public hearing, we could definitely keep you apprised of.
Well, I would think they'd advise us that they think it has a regional impact when it comes that way, I would hope, since they do make that connection. Okay. I need some type of a decision that says that this is complete and ready for some kind of review and approval. Is that- I have a motion by Phil, or do I hear a second?
Seconded it.
And does this also, the motion, seconded by Tim, does this also include the motion to grant that this does not have a regional impact?
Yes.
Yes. Tim?
I'm not too sure about that.
Okay. Then let's back up and discuss regional impact on this project then.
The reason I make that statement is because there's a lot of times if you're coming from Bedford on 114 at the 101 intersection, if you look towards the college at night, you can see lights from one of their stadiums or fields or something going on down there. You can see it across the treetops. And I'm wondering if these lights are going to be at the same elevation or higher than the ones that they already had. So depending upon that answer, I would formulate an opinion on a regional impact.
Is it the request of the board that we hear the applicant's presentation before we make a motion on if there's any regional impact or any of these other criteria? Yes.
Regional impact from Goffstown? Or from-
Whether our decision here tonight could have a regional impact on a neighboring town.
Because it's adjacent to the town line between the town of
Regional-
Goffstown and Bedford. And the campus encompasses both properties in both Goffstown and Bedford. That this particular proposal is within 100 yards of the border.
And a regional impact can be a traffic impact, a light impact, a noise impact, a dust impact. There's all kinds of impacts. And I'm considering whether there is going to be a light impact on the neighboring town that's going to be more than what they have right now.
Yes, Megan?
Similarly, I'm concerned there might be a drainage impact to Manchester. So again, I'd be interested in hearing their presentation to kind of see what information they have about those issues, and we can talk about them in more detail, I guess.
Okay. Then why don't we need to withdraw that motion before we can proceed.
Or to withdraw that inclusion that you included.
Okay, ready for public hearing, and we'll withdraw that amendment to that says that this does not have a regional impact. So what we're voting on is that this application is complete and ready for review.
Correct.
I'll second that.
And revised second by Tim. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Is there a person here representing the college? Welcome. Would you please introduce yourselves? You have the floor for a short period of time to bring us up to speed. Thank you. So just tell us your names and how you represent the university.
My name is Paul Caridio. I'm from TF Moran. We're the engineers of the
Could you
project.
spell your last name, please?
Carideo.
My name, for the record, is Nathan Collins. I'm a project manager with Gale Associates. We are the engineering firm who's working on the athletic facilities portion of the project with St. Louis.
You gentlemen, you have the floor.
Okay. As a start, I brought some boards and I want to give an overview of all the improvements that the college is planning on doing. It will be very short, but I think it will explain a lot of things that's going on as far as the regional impact and how Bedford is looking at it. We were there Monday night. We use these same boards explaining everything that was happening in Goffstown. So they are aware of it. So if I could just put those boards
Oh,
up.
certainly. You can present from there if you'd
Okay.
like.
I didn't know if I needed to be on a mic or.
Just talk loud.
Is the mic right above your head?
Oh, I didn't see that. This is a general overview. I know it's a little small, but this basically outlines everything in dark green is what the college owns. The light green has been subdivided in the past with regards to the church. So even though it is separated by that point. Today, major discussion for the sports field is located right here. This is the existing football stadium. As part of all these improvements that the college is preparing, there's an existing parking lot in this area that is going to be changed into a common. This application has been submitted and like the planner has suggested, I mean, we will be before the board in a couple of weeks to present this. Basically, this layout, and I'll give you just a real brief, there are gated access on both ends. It's been gone over with the fire department. It's one-way traffic in and around during normal process. Same thing this way. We do have a couple of parking areas for ADA on both sides. And they're allowed to be opened up during move in and move out so they can get to the dorms that are needed to be. Again, very brief, you'll be fully, the presentation will be fully explained further in a couple of weeks. I can answer some questions just to go over that. And with this in mind, just as a side note, we did this layout back in 1999. The master plan for the college, which basically had that parking lot being removed and a common of some sort to be implemented. So they're just trying to follow their own master plan. As part of that, once that common gets put in, parking is going to have to be relocated. It's being done in Bedford. Again, that's what we were there on Monday night to discuss with them. So the parking is being developed, the application's been in to the town of Bedford, and this is basically what it's gonna look like. The access will be coming down through Goffstown. However, this parking is only being relocated from an existing site on campus. So it's not like we're drawing more cars, it's just relocating cars that are already on site to a different location. Again, this one's going through review through the town of Bedford, and that application has been applied. We were there for conceptual on Monday.
Okay.
As a last note, another project that's being done in Bedford, they are having an upgrade in utility with a small substation, gonna be located in this area, to upgrade their, electric. So, again, those are all going in front of the board, at the same time. So it's, give you a real basic overview of, what's happening on campus. Again, this is just an aerial that explains the same thing. There's the sports field. The parking lot that's being removed is here. The parking that's being installed is here. And the substation is going to be placed out here. So a lot of trees around it, as that goes. I guess I don't know where we want to start after that brief. We can go into some of the questions. I know Megan, I have gotten her email, and we can try to address them, or we can present the field, which I think may then lead into Megan's comments. So rather than putting one before the other, I think the presentation of the field would probably be the best.
Please,
Next to
you have the floor. Yes, John?
Just quick, I couldn't see where this is gonna happen. He was blocking the
Oh,
view.
sorry.
I just wanted,
If you can point to where the new parking area would be?
Sure. This area here, it's actually a property that's in Bedford, but the town line,
got it.
it runs essentially adjacent to the existing
That's the
access
farm, if
drive.
I remember, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So again, for the record, my name is Nathan Collins. We've been working with St. Anselm's probably for about 4 months now. It was a pretty fast-track project. In what we consider renovation to their existing football stadium. The project itself is a turf replacement. For those of you familiar with the facility, it's currently a natural turf field. There's several berms on the outsides, both at the end zone and the sideline, between the playing surface and the existing parking area. What we're proposing to do is maintain that existing footprint, however, strip off the sod, approximately 8 to 12 inches of the gravel underneath that field, and replace it with a synthetic turf field. The new synthetic turf field that we're proposing is not the typical AstroTurf that you may have thought of, that was, became big in the 70s. That was basically literally a carpet like we're standing on that you would put over concrete or sometimes pavement. This is an open drained system. They refer to it as infilled synthetic turf, and I can go into that in a little more detail if you wish. That gets overlaid on a stone base, a gravel base. And what that does is it allows water to drain vertically through the system, rather than a natural grass field, which we all believe to drain vertically. Oftentimes the topsoil's got clay and silt content, gets compacted due to overuse, and you deal more with sheet flow rather than vertical drainage. So again, the existing bleachers, we're actually going to maintain the existing fence line, and this footprint that you see with this hatch will be the limits of the synthetic turf field. Total width of approximately 245 feet in width. We choose that width because that accommodates your NCAA sports, particularly soccer, which plays at a dimension of 75 yards or 225 feet, and we provide a safety runout of about 10 feet to the outside limits of that turf. The length of the field is driven by football, American football, 360 feet, plus again a 10-foot safety runout. The synthetic turf, again, gets laid on the gravel, Beneath the gravel will be a series of finger drains. The plan, and I know that was one of Megan's questions, calls them out as 12-inch multi-flow drains. And it's not a 12-inch pipe, it's a flat panel drain. I have a sample with me. That will get connected to a series of, excuse me, perforated collector pipes. As you can see here, this herringbone pattern, again, those are flat drains. They come in rolls, and they get rolled out just directly on the subgrade. And they're more there for overflow purposes, because a lot of the water that you'll see in any rain event will get stored just in the void space of the gravel underneath that synthetic turf field. So if you can imagine 100,000 square feet of stone at an average depth of 9 inches with a void ratio of 30%, you essentially can store a 100-year storm event within that field. And we rely on basically attenuating that storm. And what I mean is, as water was to hit the high point, which is right at your midfield, drain vertically through that stone, and then drain over land, ultimately into this flat panel drain, takes a long period of time. And if you were to open this drainage structure immediately after a storm event, you wouldn't see any water flowing through it, because it's all, again, collecting and storing up in that water, in the stone. So we're confident in saying that we're actually going to improve some of the drainage conditions. Again, associated with the field. I know there might be some drainage questions associated with the new parking, and I know there's some existing drains that have some issues that we're not touching as part of this field renovation project. We're tying into an existing system, but again, based on the fact that we're storing a significant amount of rainfall in this field and attenuating how quickly that water gets into the system, we're confident that we're not adding any adverse impact to that drainage system. The lighting is kind of a different animal. St. Anselm's is making an investment in putting in synthetic turf. Obviously, with synthetic turf, you can use it a lot more than natural grass. So they are looking at the investment of putting in athletic field lighting for both practice and for game events. One thing we did to make sure we minimize any impact to abutters is we're using, in our opinion, what is the most state-of-the-art athletic facility lighting that's available on the market. It's manufactured by a company called Musco Athletic Field Lighting. They are a leader in terms of cutoff. It's a misnomer in athletic and lighting discussion. There are no athletic lighting manufacturers that provide full cutoff fixtures like you would see in a parking lot, with a 90-degree angle on their lens, just because you can't, unless you ran cables across that field, you can't get directly over a field. So what we do is to control that light, to control the off-site spill, to mitigate light going out into neighboring properties, is we have to go higher. Ideally, we'd like to put a 150-foot pole, because as you picture a field, the higher you get, the more control you have by aiming that light down. Because what light wants to do as it hits a field, it wants to bounce off, reflect, and go into neighboring properties. So these poles on the eastern side of the field, because we're able to put them so close to the field, we're proposing 70-foot poles. Those will have 16 fixtures on each pole. The west side, again, because we wanted to minimize sightline issues associated with spectators in the grandstands, we had to push them back. And they're actually, again, not knowing how familiar you are with the site, there's a corridor under here that they have concessions and everything. It'll be just in front of those garage doors. Because we're further away from the field and we want to have the same control in the spill, we've raised the height of these by 10 feet, and these are the two 80-foot poles that we're proposing. And again, because we're further away and want to get the amount of light on the field, those have, off the top of my head, I believe 21 fixtures per pole. One other thing we've done, again, to minimize impact, is we've provided a dual voltage lighting system. What that means is during practice, where you may not be televising and you don't need the light as bright as you might need for a game, they can lower the foot candle output to 50-foot candles on the field. And during a game event, they have the ability to bump that up to 75-foot candles. 50-foot candles is the minimum amount of light that you want to use for any type of athletic activity. That gives you the minimum foot candles for specifically your small ball sports, men's and women's lacrosse, where there's small ball activity. Based on working with Musco, they have developed a product, it's called Light Structure Green, that in terms of the market, and I do have a representative here with me from Musco, if you want some specific details, but you see the fixtures, this is the best visor in the market in terms of, I don't want to call it full cutoff, but as close to full cutoff as is available in athletic field lighting. By a combination of this, this visor and also glare protection that's worked out into the bulb, it doesn't have that effect of, you know, if you look at some of the old lights where it's just a flat face and they glow, and it glows up, it glows out, down, everywhere. This is much less of an impact to the neighboring property. And what we're able to do with the height of the poles and also the fixtures that we're using is we're able to maintain a 0-foot candle level approximately 100 feet from the pole. What that means is at your curb line of this parking lot for poles S3 and S4, the 70-foot poles, you will have no more light after the lights go in spilling off that site than you do today. On these poles, again, and this is based on a flat site, 100 feet from these poles, it's actually a little bit less because of they're 80 feet. You'll have 100 0-foot candles at the ground because of the height of these poles. And what we haven't taken into account, because light readings get kind of calculated based on a flat surface, is that this field, based on kind of the rest of the campus and these upper practice facilities, is actually about 20 feet below grade of these facilities, as well as you can see, this large vegetated area that's to the east of the field. So again, we're confident in saying that based on the foot candles that are at your property lines today, there will be 0 impact to the light that's spilling off of those property lines post-construction. And again, using Musco, they have a 25-year warranty where they guarantee those light levels for the period of the 25 years. And again, it's, you know, it's a little more money that the school's paying for, but it's certainly worth it in our opinion. That's really the gist of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And
We'll take some questions from the board, and we'll open it up to a public hearing in a moment. But Phil? Yes.
Thank you. On that drawing that you have up there, that one, can you just outline where the new parking area is? Because that's below it, my recollection.
the parking facility is a little bit higher, actually. Right now, this is the low point of their campus, and as you drive down this access road and drive up by the new hockey rink, this all starts sloping up.
No, I didn't mean elevation. What I meant below, looking at this, it's south, the parking lot is south of
Correct,
the
I'm sorry.
field.
Yes.
So if you could just outline with your pointer so that everybody could see
It would-
where the new parking area is and the town line and
Sure.
for lighting overspill.
My understanding is that the parking lot is generally in this vicinity.
And the lights will be where on there?
Here, 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 and here.
And a distance from the most southerly 80-foot light and the 75-foot light to the parking area is approximately
At least 100 yards, probably about 100 yards.
100 yards, and
Yeah.
you're saying 100 feet from those poles will be zero
Correct.
impact?
Yes.
And access to that parking lot is gonna be through the campus, not through Bedford?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Barbara?
On the lights on the stadium side,
that you said are 80 feet high,
Mhm.
where are they in relation to the back of the, you know how the stadium goes up there? How high are you when you're in that upper, you have any idea?
I would say it's roughly at 25, it's pretty steep. I would say 20 to 25 foot grade change.
It's a pretty steep
That's-
thing, so you're pretty high when you're up right behind that, right?
That's correct.
Mhm.
I'm just sort of wondering how much higher the 80 feet are. My guess is it's not much.
Are you talking about where the stands are?
Yeah.
The top of the stands to where the
Top of the
lights
lights
are.
Light is.
because
Right,
they're gonna move the light back, I can understand that, but my guess, and you've got in
Yeah,
place
I
to,
don't know
so
if
they
we-
don't block as much as possible.
Yeah, see, we're, all the work is at the base of that slope, we're not
Right.
working into the slope, so our surveyors, we didn't pick up the grades in
Okay.
the there, so I can't give you a definitive.
I just know
number.
there's a huge grade
There
there,
is.
and I
There
was
is,
just wondering
significant.
what, okay, thank you.
Tim?
Where you were pointing to that vegetative barrier directly below the field,
This one?
next one down,
Here,
that's not gonna be there after a while, because that's where that new parking lot goes. That'll all be cut out of there.
correct,
So
portions
you're
of that.
gonna lose some of your barrier that you're describing there, I assume.
This barrier, I guess what's kind of known as the tailgating area, will remain.
That will
So
stay?
There'll still be a stretch of, again, close to 100 yards of vegetation. It's probably about 70 yards in terms of scaling it off.
There's some trees in there too, aren't there?
Oh, there's
Yeah,
some
this
trees.
whole, right, this whole
Tall
area is
trees.
vegetated, and that will all.
That's remaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all staying in place.
The second thing is, how tall are the lights on the baseball field right now? Do you know?
The baseball field.
That's what we can see at night what I
No, I
spoke of earlier?
believe the lights that you see are from a practice facility. To my knowledge, it's one of these fields that are lit, which again is higher than the football field
Hmm.
today.
That other baseball field is not lit?
This is not lit.
Okay.
Because the field that's lit, I am aware, is in Bedford. And when they did put those lights on, it was deemed that it was not a project of regional impact when Bedford originally voted on it. I wasn't involved personally, but I understand working with the college that that was the case.
Okay.
I think it's this far field?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Which, again, grade-wise,
20-foot difference.
I would guess is at least 20 to 30 foot difference.
It's almost 30.
Yeah.
Megan, do you have anything that you'd like to bring to the board at the moment?
Yeah, just listening to the presentation, I understand that, the stone layer underneath the field can provide some capacity for storage. I'd be interested in knowing what the pre versus post flow is on that, and if it does balance out or not, because none of that information, I don't have anything to look at. That was something I spoke to, I don't know if you want me to pull this up just to show you where the concerns are. When this came in front of us, I remember a few years ago, in 2008, Manchester had contacted us about some concerns they had about flooding onto Rockland Ave that came from upstream, a detention pond area. And this whole area drains down toward that, which I could just show you quickly. Want me to just put it up here?
Yes,
That one?
please.
Okay, this is just one section of the college right here, but, see, the yellow football field is right here. Here's the detention basin that I was talking about, and, Rockland Ave comes down here at an angle like this. And so the issue is over here on Rockland Ave. What happens is a huge part of the college all drains down toward here. The front of the college drains out toward the road, which the road actually all comes down past that political building where they have the political meetings and stuff down there, and then out to this area. And then this whole area, even up in here, I don't know if these dorms or whatever, but on the next page, which I have those too, this all drains down into here, this all drains down into here, and this all goes to here, the detention pond, and it goes out these swales. And so a few years ago, I met with, I think, a representative from the college. I believe Jeff Cavan from TF Moran was there, and a representative from Manchester was there, and we walked this area in here and looked at the concerns. And so there was some work that St. A's was going to do. They were going to possibly dredge out the detention pond and I think like maybe retune their swale And then I think there was a concern down here in the parking lot too. I don't have a lot of notes. I had a few emails, you know, that I was trying to refresh my memory on everything, but I think there's like a choke point in the drainage down here where it kind of floods out into the wetland, but there's a small pipe that runs through this last parking lot. And then it all goes down to like some, maybe a 36 at least inch pipe down on Rockland Ave. And so Manchester's saying that the water is not only going over the pipe, but it's actually at times even going over the head wall on spilling out onto the road. They also said back where the treatment swale is, there's like a treatment swale that runs right down through here, and it's spilling over, I guess, the banks of even that at times and flooding out onto Rockland Ave. So I contacted them and said, you know, has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? What's been going on? And they feel as though it has gotten worse. They're seeing it more frequently over the last few years. And, you know, I'm not sure what changes have been made, you know what I mean? I don't know. Each time that I've been here in the last 8 years, there's been a few changes. I think there was the dorm building and the expansion onto Carr Center. And, you know, we had concerns about drainage even then. There's a lot of small pipes out here, a lot of 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, a lot of that. I'm just, to me, I'm just concerned that at some point, like, I feel like an overall drainage study really needs to be looked at, because I think, you know, the system's over capacity and sending water downstream, that just, the systems are over capacity. So, you know, with this other project that's coming soon, I'd like to look at that, and I'm hoping, I haven't looked at the plans yet, but maybe they're incorporating some type of underground storage to reduce some of the flow. You know, so I'll have to look at that stuff, but, it's just something that, you know, keeps coming up, and we kinda, you know, don't keep doing a lot about it. Maybe St. A's went and did all this work, I'm not sure. I didn't have a chance to get out there this week. So I had sent an email to Brian, he sent it over to, Jeff Cavan, who I worked with last time, so I'm not sure, what the status is of that. But that's kinda just a minimum, the bare minimum of what could be done. Dredge out the pond down to the original intent level to restore the capacity that was supposed to be there, retune the swale, just some basic stuff. But I think at some point, they're gonna need to do a little more and provide some other storage. And, you know, I'd like to sit down with whoever, TF Moran, and kinda look at where is their storage being utilized, or where could we expand it, or, you know, cause I just think that needs to be looked at. There's a lot of impervious area, parking lots, buildings, and, you know, we're causing some concerns downstream. I have an email, Manchester didn't have enough time to like write an official letter, so I said, at least send me an email. So I have that, and I can give that to you, so it's just on record. They just wanted to be on record that they do have concerns, and they feel as though it has gotten worse. And, you know, the college has been good and willing to work with us. I followed up a couple times with TF Moran, and then I don't know whatever happened with this, if it ever got resolved. So it's back in front of us, and I just wanna know where this is at and what we're gonna do about it, I guess.
Okay. Tim?
I have a
Thank you,
question.
Megan.
I have a question for Nathan. Is the drainage system that's going to be proposed to be put under the athletic field, is that a closed system, or does that have a high overflow element built into it?
I'm not sure I understand.
I'm asking you, if when the water goes down into that whole system of pipes and drains you've explained to us, is there a place where if that field gets filled up, that it runs out onto the surface somewhere, or goes into a structure and runs off the site?
Well, we have, as one of the details you'll see, along 3 edges of the field, we have actually an open trench system. It's a product called ACO Drain. It's about 6 inches wide, and it's an open grate to collect. On this side, it's more to collect some of the runoff from the existing paved areas before it gets onto your fields, because you do want to try to isolate these things, and you don't want to bring potential sediment onto the field. But if you were, this is just a kind of general slide that we use. If you look here, your field is pitched at a 0.5% at the finish grade. Again, because with synthetic turf, you want it almost flat. The subgrade that we're proposing is actually sloped at 1% below, so you'll have 2 different pitches to encourage water to get to the collector drains. Again, just a typical slide you can see here. Water will flow into those, and that's a detail. In this instance, it was a track, but we have existing pavement. It's an open drain system. But there's not really an outlet control structure as part of the system. The natural turf field has an existing subdrain system that we're taking out, that ties into this drainage system, and we're maintaining that same connection point for our subdrain system. But again, we're slowing, the amount of water isn't gonna change, because your
Right.
footprint's the same, but we're slowing it down so we can mitigate some of those downstream flooding issues by slowing that water down. We're not sending the water to that area as quickly as it's going there today.
Are you counting on that water leaching into the soil underneath the field as well, or is it just supposed to collect it and come back out?
You'll get some leaching, but based on some test bits we've done, not much.
So the water will eventually run into a pipe and run off
Correct.
the field?
Yeah, you'll get some recharge, but we haven't taken that into any consideration because the test bits that we dug, we got perk rates and they were,
The
it was
bad perk
pretty
rates.
tight material, yeah.
So that water will be leaving the football field as well?
Which is what it's doing now, if the perk tests are coming back like
Right.
that, right?
Right, but we're talking about overall drainage, and I just wanted to be
No,
clarify
we
whether.
just made the leap to overall
I
drainage.
wanted to clarify whether the football field was self-sufficient, that it was gonna drain on its own, or was it gonna be continued to be tied to the existing system, and I got my answer.
Okay.
I'd
and
like
you
to
need
think that
three
that's two
opposed.
separate issues.
Right,
One would be the construction of the field is one issue, and the resolution of any of the, I'll call it, the site drainage configurations is another issue, which I'd like to see some cooperation between the university and the town. I think that has happened before, just needs to be reinstituted. Because eventually I want to open this up to a public hearing. I don't know if any members of the public here wishing to speak, but I'll get to those folks in a few minutes. But John first,
I have a question for Megan,
okay?
if I could direct it to her. The drainage that was put in a year ago or so from around Rockland Ave, or let's say the hardware store down to the river, does any of that you were talking about that comes this way, does that flow into that large pipe that was?
They all go to the final same outlet point, I believe. This actually goes, if I remember correctly, the water that all drains out here goes, I believe, under some homes, okay? And then it hits Mast Road. Where it hits Mast Road, our water from that new drainage area ties into a huge structure, which have actually been down in it, and there's a humongous pipe at the bottom, which is what runs under these homes. Probably, it was either five or 6 foot diameter pipe down there, and that drains right out underneath more houses, straight out to the river. So yes, this and that do connect, but below this point, downstream of this point. Like that water doesn't tie in right here to where the problem is. They both tie into a lower point.
All right, thank you.
If the Bonsante Market that's on Mast Road, there's a low point in Mast Road, and that's where that pipe is. It's the dip in the road, it's there.
So I have the guy's house who put an addition on with the big garage that goes right underneath that
Yes.
home right there.
Yeah. So it's there.
I'd like to ask Brian about.
Yes.
Brian, I'd like to ask you a question about your statement that the exception on the outdoor lighting regulations, 8.4, does that are you saying that is an all-encompassing exception? Because according to 8.3, any lights greater than 20-foot candles on the ground requires the submission of a detailed engineered lighting plan. And we were told these are going to be 50-foot candles and 75-foot candles. Now, will we be receiving a detailed engineering lighting plan, or is that part of your statement that it's an exception because it's a ball field?
There actually is on SE3,
They've
lighting
Provided
density
some
check.
skills.
They're there already.
That's
They're done.
And how about our height distance, which is not to exceed 25 feet, 8.2? So we need waivers for those sections, don't we?
Well, that's basically what the exception is granting. So section 8.4 is for exceptions. The planning board can grant a conditional use permit for outdoor recreational facilities, and I think that would take into account the height of those.
There's two parts to that formula. One is the distance, or the height, which is the 3 plus D divided by 3. but then there's also not to exceed 25 feet. It's the not to exceed 25 feet that gets them.
I think your question
Because of the pole
of,
height.
is it all encompassing? I think, yes, it encompasses all of section 8.
Okay, that's your opinion.
Phil?
Well, question I had was the Rosemont Drainage Project that John had touched on with you, because my question was you mentioned the 36-inch pipe, and you're talking about the 36 existing pipe, not the Rosemont portion. They do come together further down. But where the Rosemont pipe went down, my question was, is it possible for them to tie in? But I guess you've already answered that they come together anyway.
They come together anyway.
Right.
Yeah, you're already downstream of it. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. You'd have, the only other place, you don't have enough gravity to go down this way, and there's no point, because the outlet is actually just through a few homes and across the street.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That goes into they all go into the same place.
Yeah, this goes like this out, let's say this is
Correct.
Mass Road right here, and this
And-
goes out like this to one structure right here, and then
And
the drainage
Rosemont
comes
comes into,
down.
right, the Rosemont project.
And our pipe is a 36-inch too.
Right.
So it's that 36, and then this is 36, and it turns to,
Yeah, fed into the
5
big
foot.
5 or 6 foot diameter. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Then what I would like to do is to open the public hearing and ask if there's anybody from the public wishing to speak in reference to this proposed project at St. Anselm's College. Any member of the public wishing to speak? Okay. Seeing none, I'm not in the mood to close the public hearing at the moment, but I would ask, are there any issues that the members of the board wish to bring to the consultant for further consideration, or before we can arrive at a conclusion to move on the conditional use permit? Members of the board?
I have one question, though.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't part of having them make their presentation also to determine the regional impact?
Yes, it is, but we haven't got that far yet.
Okay, well, that's why I just want to make sure we weren't skipping that.
No, we're not. I've got it highlighted on my,
Good job.
Megan.
you want me to submit this email officially from Manchester?
Through Brian,
Okay.
that's fine.
I don't know if you need me to read any of it or not, but they're just essentially asking for a drainage study also to review based on their concerns.
The,
Follow-up question on that to Megan.
yes,
I'm stretching back from my memory when that project was going on. Wasn't one of the issues that Manchester hadn't upgraded the pipes on their end of that system? And that while we were putting in, while the big drainage, the 5-foot one was going in, and we had the 36 coming in from a couple of places, that Manchester hadn't done any update of their drainage system on that side, and we suspected that was some issues.
Had to do with what's upstream.
It's permitted then.
Not to do with what's upstream, but when they're talking about water coming down and Rockland and overflowing, aren't there issues down on their drainage size in regards to the capacity that they've had for
I mean,
years?
that's a 36-inch pipe right there, I believe, or
Where's
bigger, it
that?
might even be 48, I'd have to, I don't think it says on this one, but, no, I mean, the only thing that came up that they acknowledge is that originally when they first talked about the issue with me in 2008, it had happened after one of the huge 100-year storm events. And so they, said, we understand it's a 100-year storm event, and so, TF Moran, we walked the whole site, and TF Moran said, look, a 100-year storm event, which they're right, nobody's system can
Right.
handle those, or, at least these systems can't. We can design them now, but these didn't. And so, no matter, even if you clean out the detention pond, you're still gonna have these problems, because Manchester's drainage system can't handle
Right.
a 100-year storm event. So everyone was aware of that. But they're saying, I guess, that it's been getting worse over the years. They feel as though the water's overtopping the bankings more often. They're seeing it happen more often.
Okay.
Now, someone could argue we're having a lot more storms and more heavy rain events too, so it's definitely a combination. I'm just saying, in general, in the 8 years I've been here, a long time ago, I had said, I personally would really like to see a drainage study done, but I know that's a huge undertaking. I just, at some point, we probably should look at that, because, there's some huge outlet points where all this water drains to. The water off the front field all goes down to a huge pipe that I heard, I think we're replacing on Laurel Street, a 36-inch pipe that's half collapsed over there. So, I mean, you know, the outlet points where the whole college goes to hits some Goffstown roads and Manchester roads that have some issues. So I think someone needs to take a big look at all of that.
Okay. Brian, do you have any words of wisdom for the board?
No.
Not at this time.
Wise man.
Absolutely.
In just reviewing the ordinance, there's two issues here. One is the use of the property in the R2 for athletic is allowed, a permitted use. So we're here for a conditional use permit on the lighting only. And I wanted to stay that way. So if there's in essence, we're doing a conditional use permit for the lighting, and we would be approving a plan for the, if you want to call it the redoing of the turf element on the field to the artificial surface. So I would like to split those two apart so they don't become cumbersome and having one overpower the other, possibly. So I might even anticipate two motions. One for the conditional use permit, which deals with the lighting only, and secondly, for the installation of the turf systems. Yes?
Question, are you saying you're ready for a motion on a conditional use for the lighting?
No?
Alan?
I still have to go back to regional impact. So I'm trying to lead people around here a
That's
little
why I
bit.
was asking that question.
Before you get a motion, we have no mention in our new business that has anything to do with the athletic field itself. It's strictly for a 4-pole athletic light system to an existing football stadium. We shouldn't be making any vote on the field construction because it's not part of our application here.
Our understanding is it's an allowable use, it doesn't.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I don't even know why we were.
I don't think we should be, I don't think we should be
have.
having a vote on the football field reconstruction at all. It's there, they're renovating it, it's really not a planning issue.
I would defer to the fact that it alters the drainage system, and there's a question about the capacity of the field versus the capacity of what was there, and to ensure the fact that we have not increased the flow off the site or into that system. Any comment from TFRN?
Yeah, I mean, back when that original field was put in, there was a drainage study for the original field that went through review, was approved. It had under drains. This system is actually gonna detain more and slowly release it. I understand the concerns with drainage, and we are willing to work with the town. We've got another project that is right behind this one that's eliminating pavement in one of these areas, creating more green. At that time, we can discuss and provide drainage calculations and work with Megan and the city of Manchester to try to take care of some of these things. That detention pond work was not as complete as what everybody would wish because it never did really dry out enough to get the bottom of that basin, but some of that work has been done. But it has been awfully wet, and they have not been able to continue with that work. It is still planned to be done. And again, if we could, just tie that to the other project in this town, and we, like I said, willing to work with the town and the city to rectify or try to rectify as much as possible.
So what you're saying is that based upon, I'll call it the campus master plan, I'll call it the central core reconfiguration to landscaping versus parking, and the relocation of parking should set off a drainage study, a more detailed drainage study, detailing the campus outlook, the entire campus. Does that sound satisfactory, Megan?
It doesn't matter at which point or which project you tie it to. And that one is right around the corner, so that's fine by me. Again, the whole college is so connected with its drainage that you're not gonna be able to just look at the park. I mean, really, it's a lot of water that comes into the park and then where that park all drains to, so, we'll end up looking at half the college anyway, just looking at that probably.
Okay.
Cause I think it's pretty much, I think it's split in 3.
Okay.
Some drainage goes, there's 3 different directions that it leads, so
Okay.
no matter where you're looking, you're gonna be taking a huge chunk of the college.
All right. So, hearing that, without closing the public hearing, I would like to get a motion on the fact that this site plan for lighting does not pose a regional impact.
So move.
I have a motion by Phil and a seconded by, if I can remember his name here,
John Heichel.
John Heichel, to grant that this did not have a regional impact. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So that's just one piece of information. Moving forward. I'll ask again if there's any members from the public wishing to speak in reference to this proposal. This has to do with the conditional use permit for lighting at the football field. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Members of the board,
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
State the whole thing, Phil, right on the front page.
As printed.
we'll add to that motion, staff recommends that this project does not pose a regional impact. There are significant buffers to neighborhood properties. The thick forested trees to the east toward Manchester. The proposed lights will face east and west. Based upon the presentation made by the consultants, have no impact, would be insignificant. Does that sound about right?
Correct?
Okay.
You're a good reader.
I changed some of, I edited some
You
fashion.
said insignificant, it said significant.
Okay. Editorial advice.
I'll second Phil's
I have a motion by Phil, seconded by Tim. Any discussion in that motion to grant the conditional use permit? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Look forward to working with you on some of this other work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our old business. Map 20, Lot 16, site plan subdivision plan amendment hearing for an approved plan to convert the use of the property to a mixed-use development for 1 new office building and 4 condominium buildings totaling 16 townhouse dwellings. Proposed amendment is to remove the 55 and older restriction from the conditions of approval and to be allowed to build the office building in the first phase of the project. Janice Bourneville, Mass Road, Dennis Park, zoned RSBOD-2, and was continued from April 28, 2011. And along with the submission of a letter from the applicant, I believe they are withdrawing the phasing component of that application. And based upon that, Brian, you have the floor. Can you bring us up to speed, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant, as I stated, is proposing to basically now only remove the 55 and older restriction on this project that was previously approved by the planning board. They had been working on some amended site plan for the phasing, but due to, I'm not sure whatever reason, they have taken that back and are now only looking for that 55 and older restriction removal. So, based on that, really the only impacts are going to be typical development as it would have been for any normal condo project. They will be paying impact fees for schools when their project comes in. And in looking at the school impact fee report for the town that the town uses in order to calculate number of students and how the impact fee should be assessed and how much. It was really only gonna be potentially adding an average of 5 or 6 students for all of those units. So, that isn't really a significant impact. Staff recommends approval of removing the 55 and older age restriction on the site plan. And I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Brian. Is the applicant here, or Janice, would you like to come up and we'd like to do a short presentation to us about what you're asking us to grant?
I'm Jan Borneville, property owner, and I'm just asking you to grant me, just removing that restriction that I have in the condo docs, to open up the, project, to more folks will be able to qualify and make it more saleable, the units more saleable.
Okay. Keeping it rather simple, are there any members?
It's short and sweet.
Okay. Are any members of the board have a question of Ms. Bourneville? Tim?
Yes. Good evening. Do you plan to make any changes to the site plan
No.
that would accommodate the fact you're gonna have children on the site now? The original site plan was for 55 and over.
That's correct.
You didn't have any sort of common areas or anything because you figured most people were gonna come and go from their units. Now you're gonna have children in the project. Are you gonna make any accommodations to change things for the children's sake?
What do you have in mind, Tim?
Well, sometimes they put in play areas or, some sort of an area where they would have room to play other than playing in the middle of the condo driveway. And
Yeah.
children do need a place to get out. I know the one row is up against that retaining wall to your neighbor, but the other side goes over towards Danish Park Road, and you did have some areas out there, and I didn't know if you had contemplated any.
Yes, I mean, I'd be more than happy to, like I said, I don't know what you have in mind. I know that in Crosswinds and what was behind Rite Aid, when I go there, I didn't notice any play area there that they have. Timberwood doesn't really have anything either, but I don't think we'd be opposed to maybe doing something.
What, Bill?
They have the whole park.
Yeah, there's actually a park up in the front, yeah.
That park.
The,
Yeah, next to the right, yeah, next to the road. I've never seen
It's
anybody.
fenced in too.
Yeah.
Next to the road, it's got a,
I would suggest that maybe as a condition of granting this removal, that should the applicant desire to install playground issues, does the board ever want to have her come in and show us before she did it?
I wouldn't want to see it. I just was wondering if it was being considered or not, because
Okay.
you, changing it from,
I mean, it-
changing it from an over 55 to a family setting, I think it changes the dynamics of the project.
I think if the board is interested in seeing something, should they decide to do it, that's one thing. I think we should notify her of that fact now, rather than wait until something happens and then, have her come back. John?
I think if it's, I appreciate Tim's thought on that. I think if it's an additional expense or not mandatory, or it doesn't have to be there. I understand, and I understand that it's a good request, it's a reasonable request, but there's no requirement to do it, there's
No,
no.
there is no, I acknowledge that.
There's nothing, there's an additional cost to that, we don't wanna burden. We understand why the request is being made, because there aren't enough people 55 and older looking to probably purchase these condos in the first place.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I think we
All right,
let's leave it simple as a request.
no other, Phil?
yeah, but I think Tim has a good point. I mean, you're and from a different hat, years back when I had a real estate license, if you're asking for the removal of the 55 restriction to make the property more marketable, and now that you're having people that have children that come in, I think Tim has a point, because marketability with families that have children, it's always nice, because they're always thinking of their children. Someplace other than the middle of the driveway to be playing where they could get hit by a car, but if there's some area, it does make it appealing, it does add the marketability. And I'm not saying that it should be a requirement, but I'm just saying that I think it's a suggestion that Tim's bringing up.
Okay. And to take that one step further, are you suggesting that even though we don't have it shown on a plan, would you be requesting an area be reserved for
I'm not,
potential recreation?
I wouldn't.
I'm not saying that either. I'm saying that, I'm asking the applicant, were they considering doing anything in addition to asking for the change?
Okay.
Not at this time.
That's an answer.
Okay. Now, I also want to open a public hearing, so Janice, if you can bear with us for a
Mark
moment.
actually was looking to be recognized. Mark was looking to get.
Who is
Oh,
waving his hand? Excuse me, Mark.
That's
Come
okay.
on.
He finished the thought, and I had nothing to add. So thank you, Tim.
I missed that, I apologize.
That's all right, just want to make sure.
I do want to hold a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Is there any person wishing to speak in reference to this application? I see none. I will close the public hearing. Members of the board, do we have any remaining issues we'd like to discuss with Ms. Bourneville?
I do.
Barbara?
I'm just gonna say two things. Brian, when this type of thing comes through, can you just throw a legal size version of what the final site plan was? Cause I couldn't find it. So I'm having a hard time
I apologize.
sort of
We probably should have had plans tonight.
even remembering what this was. And I'm going, and having said that, I'm gonna lead into, I understand the marketing issues, I understand the 55 and old issues, but older issues. But I also know that historically, this board, when it's proposed as a 55 and older, it's a little more lenient on what it looks for in the site plan. It's the age-old thing that this board has done repeatedly, where site plans come in, you sort of give a little, and then a few years later, they come in and they change something. You don't change the site plan because you're not really seeing it as a change in use, but the reality is, the review of the plan would have been different if that restriction or request was not part of the original plan. And I'm just gonna say that when further extensions come up, I am gonna sort of be looking at that kind of thing, because the board does treat these projects differently, and I will tell you that there are other projects where we have made people, not as bigger than this project, we have made applicants put in recreational areas when there are townhouse-type housing for families to accommodate children. That has been a requirement of our plans in those cases, so, and it's not this person, this application, this is a general comment that people get accommodations when applications are presented one way. And the board just needs to be mindful of it. I'm not sure on an application of this size that it makes a huge difference, but I think it should be recalled.
If I remember distinctly from my archive, that this particular site development went through several different changes of location of driveways and units and whatever during that approval process.
I am just, and for all I know, I missed the meet, I have no idea. I'm looking at the extension requests, and I know I was here for some of those. I just
Well,
was
I
drawing a
understand.
complete blank on this project.
I understand the concern of that.
But that could
So
be 'cause
Brian,
the
if
cheese
if
in
and
my
when we
head.
have these, if we would just have the simple overview sheet supplied to the board, members of the board, so that they will refresh their memories.
I'm okay with it. I
Okay.
just wanted to say that.
No,
Phil.
I agree with Barbara, but just so that, when this came through and what Alan was talking about, the review and the changes and everything, that was prior to you were on the board.
Yeah, but the
So-
extension requests have been
Yeah.
through, so.
Right, no, I
was-
understand.
Usually you see the plan at the extension, and I
Okay.
couldn't even remember that,
The point I was making is the change that he was talking about,
were before.
right, were before, and you didn't see that. No, and I think that very point was subject, a topic of conversation that we had when she was here the last time, and that's how we got to the school impact. Okay, but exactly what you were talking about, because there are some times when a developer comes in for something, kind of like if they're gonna make a private thing, that we don't make them do certain things for that, so. But I think all the aspects have been touched on.
Now, the public hearing is officially closed. We're probably at the end of any resolution of issues. I'm really looking to some type of a motion. I'd like to have that motion consider also the comment about school impact fees. It's because that would be a requirement of the project as built.
I have a question. At what point would that child impact fee come into play? Only when they pull a permit or start construction, or right now?
No,
Begin construction.
the school impact fee is due upon
Permit.
issuance of the building permit.
Right.
So, for instance, if, say they just draw a permit for the first 4-unit building,
Mhm.
I suspect that school impact fee would be due for those 4 units. And then would be subsequent submission on the next 4 units, and then
Right.
subsequent
So I
for
guess
to
my
all
question
16.
is, why would you want that put into any kind of motion tonight? If they'd have to do that by rules anyway?
Because that did not have school impact fees for the original approval. They were not part of any approval. They are part of the new approval, which is removing the over 55 restriction. So those conditions have to be tied on to the whole package.
As part of the usual approval, it would be to approve all rules and comply with all regulations, and it just wasn't part of those rules at the time. It's sort of, it's a little redundant, but it's probably not.
But it wasn't in the original approval.
Right,
No,
that's why.
Because of the age-restricted housing before, it was not
Right, I
subject
understand that
to
part.
impact fees.
But it's typical to put it in the sort of approval
Just to-
early on.
Just so that there's no misunderstanding that the fees are due.
Actually, it could also serve, if the project was purchased by another developer, it would serve as notice to that developer that these are the conditions of the approval, and under disclosure rules, at least it would be all there.
Okay, thank you.
We found that just referencing regulations doesn't always do it.
Sometimes regulations change and people don't realize when they were changed.
Yeah.
Members of the board, what's your pleasure? Looking for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the change,
The removal of the 55 and older restriction on the site plan?
yes, and add the
Condition.
condition of impact fees for
School impact fee.
school impact fees on construction.
Do I hear a second? Phil, did you second that?
Yes.
Seconded by Phil. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Hopefully, things will move forward for you, Janice.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you,
Night.
Dan.
See you later.
Moving on to, last item on our agenda this evening is map 17, lot 178, site plan review hearing for a proposal to demolish the former Burger King restaurant building and rebuild an 8,320 square foot retail building that will be utilized by the Family Dollar Store, JKLM Trust owner and JDH Capital applicant, 690 Mass Road, Zone Commercial, continued from May 12th. I have one question of Brian that I'd like to have addressed, and that is, it refers, the applicant is JKLM Trust, and I'd like to
Owner,
try to find out who that is,
owners.
and who is JDH Capital?
Under what basis are you asking that information? Do you have an authorized rep?
Yes, I had the application signed.
Okay.
JKLM is the current property owner. JDH is the developer who's purchasing the property after the approval.
Okay,
And I'm Brian Pratt from CLD Consulting Engineers. I'm representing JDH.
it's just a question while I was reading the information that I had of my own, but Brian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure you're following along in your revised packet. because that's a revised report for this project. Basically, and this project came before you about a month ago. I wasn't here at the time, but actually, yeah, it was about a month ago. Patty
Was
filled
this the
Patty
really
filled in for
short
me.
meeting that Patty did?
Yes.
It was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
I
short
remember that meeting.
It's like an hour-long meeting.
Ah, It was a wonderful meeting.
Yeah, I missed one of the short ones.
Who ran the meeting? Who was the
But we
chair of the
beat her
meeting?
last week with 45 minutes, right?
I think she's making those comments because she didn't have the overhead on the last time.
Yeah.
One day
I didn't have it this time though either, as you noticed. I was in
And your
Keene. I was in
pointer was
Keene all
being-
day long, so
and your little,
please forgive
little
me.
laser pointer, somebody else had a little laser pointer here?
Yeah. Anyway, to get back
Moving forward.
to get back to business, this is for demolishing the existing Burger King, constructing an 8,320 square foot retail building with a Family Dollar in its place, on approximately a 52,765 square foot piece of land, over on Mast Road. On May 12th, the board found that the project didn't have a regional impact and accepted it for review. And then it's been continued to today for formal review. The applicant has submitted responses to town comments and has also put in requests for 3 separate, I'll say waivers for this. They're actually three different things, but, and I'll just go through each of those. The first one is to actually waive Development Regulations, Section 8.5, distance to side lot line. What they are looking to do, and this goes along with the next one as well, but the next one is going to be a determination or a requirement placed upon them based upon the language in the zoning ordinance. What they're looking to do is decrease the distance between the driveway, where the driveway enters the property, and the property line closest to that driveway. And that's gonna be on the sort of northwest side of the lot. The reason for that is truck turning movements into the site for right-hand turning movements, that would be basically coming from New Hampshire Route 114 area, that side. Right turn movements into that driveway would not be able to occur without the truck needing to pull into oncoming traffic, and therefore the police department was a little concerned about that. Same with the fire, and I myself am a little concerned about that as well. And so the safety factor of a truck pulling into oncoming traffic, I think warrants the planning board granting approval of this waiver, and also requiring them, basically what allows them to get a 32-foot wide driveway is the planning board would have to require them to do a 3-lane driveway instead of a 2-lane driveway. The wording in there is basically just, it allows for a 2-lane driveway unless otherwise approved by the planning board. It's not exactly that language, but if the planning board finds it necessary, they can allow a 3-lane driveway. And so that one sort of addresses number 2 under this waivers and conditional use permits section. And then the third one is a conditional use permit that they would need for the maximum height of the light poles. Currently on site, they do have existing tall light poles, and if they were to follow the current ordinance, which I think we're familiar with that it has a funky formula in there that requires property, it helps calculate the height, the allowable height based on the distance from the property line. And they would only be allowed a 6-foot tall light pole if they were to follow that. So seeing as this is within the Pinardville Village Center area, the zoning ordinance allows the planning board to grant an exception in that area. And so that would be what the request is for the planning board to grant a conditional use permit that allows them to do taller light poles according to their plans. And I put in some information into your staff report about doing your waivers. Key conditions. We did a TRC meeting on May 16th, 2011. We gave them comments, and as I stated earlier, they responded to the comments. We've provided you a revised or a new set of the comments on your desk because a page was missing out of the responses. So I don't know if any of you noticed that, but page 2 was noticed that it was missing the numbers 5 through 12. And so we wanted to make sure you had those. But based on all the responses, we've come up with several conditions that we would like to add to the project. Those are listed in the back of the report. Police and fire departments reviewed the site. They submitted that they didn't have any additional comments. I added at the bottom of the key considerations, number 12, that the fire department did make one comment that they actually supported granting those waivers for the trucks to be able to stay in their own lane, or at least in the center lane, and not have to pull into oncoming traffic. Engineering department comments have been given, and I've included those in this revised report. Manchester Waterworks has already stated that they're approved and ready to move forward. I've also received notice from the Sewer Commission that they are okay with everything as it's designed, and that's okay to move forward. Let's see, I actually worked with the applicants to do some enhancements to the elevations. So the color elevations that you all received, you may not have gotten it on this packet, I'm not sure. The color elevations that we received the first time were the same colors, but there's a revised elevation. There it is. So that's the original elevations that the applicant provided to us. And basically, some of the structure has changed. We just worked with them to add some windows and raise the front tower up so that it's actually at the height of where that rear part is, a little bit higher even. And just a few other cosmetic adjustments. And
Do we have those to see?
those are in black and white in your
They're on the desk somewhere.
on your desk, yeah. So we'd actually gotten the old elevations with the submittal, but I think those had not gone out anyway, so hopefully that's not too confusing for you. But they're just raising up the tower in the front and changing a little bit of the cosmetics of it, adding some windows and awnings, and yeah. So another thing, the Conservation Commission did provide some comments. They were concerned about snow storage being allowed on the site and recommended that the applicant explore a recommendation for a rain garden to help with drainage on site. They also wanted the applicant to preserve all the existing trees and landscaping and to add more landscaping to the front of the property. And then also to that would enhance the view of the property along Mass Road. staff's feeling on this is most of those types of comments are planning-related comments, not necessarily Conservation Commission comments. And I think the planning board can address those items tonight without requiring the applicant to go back to the Conservation Commission in another couple of weeks. That was one of their requests. They wanted the applicant to come to their next Conservation Commission meeting. Staff does not feel like that is needed. I believe that's it. The recommendations are as listed in the on the next to the last page of the report. That the board waive the regulations as stated in the report, and then require the 3 lanes, grant the conditional use permit for section 8.2, and then approve the site plan subject to the conditions listed. And as I did say earlier, Megan did have some comments. Those are comments 7 through 11. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Brian. Megan, do you have anything to update? Are you confident, based upon those notes and requirements, that those will be sufficient to meet your approval for this project? If those are corrected?
Yeah, if those are corrected.
Okay.
They'll probably want to respond to some of those
Okay.
items. The only other thing I thought of just recently is, was an escrow account established for engineering review for this? I just didn't know if it needs to be a condition of approval. If there was one, sometimes when there are bigger site plan, there's the escrow account. I just want to make sure in approval conditions that we get any staff time paid for it.
I
If there's
would
an
have to,
escrow
I would
account.
have
If
to
there's
check
not,
the
and it's
application.
just the fee-based one, then that's fine.
I believe typically $1,000 is requested at the beginning.
Yeah, but
And
sometimes
then-
that's not enough to cover, they give us that as a
Yeah.
placeholder, and it may be, I haven't compiled any of the time, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, if you want to
I just didn't know if it
recommend
needed
an
to be-
additional condition that we, if it's needed, then
Yeah, just the
additional
fee
escrow
invoice.
engineering
Mhm.
fee, I don't see.
Members of the board, we have any direct questions? Tim?
Yes, I'd like to ask Meg, I have the CLD report that Brian passed out to us, and I noticed you had almost 3 pages of corrections and changes that were needed. Do you feel this plan was adequately prepared and presented to us, or do you think that you did a little too much work here for them?
I don't know, a lot of my comments were very minor. When you start reading them, fix the arrow, fix this, remove a little note, extend that, label this.
I only
So
say
the
that
biggest issues were drainage issues, which I've been working with Brian back and forth on. I had some recommendations. We had asked for rain gardens. It didn't sound like they were willing to do that, but they were kind of providing some grass swales. I'm kind of asking again for, all right, maybe not rain gardens, but how about some type of infiltration? So hopefully he can comment on that tonight. So I'm trying to find a happy medium where we get some infiltration, which is one of Concom's concerns too, and yet it's not an unreasonable request too, so.
Okay. Phil?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for the applicant.
Sure.
Could you describe to me how the delivery on the tractor trailer that comes in?
Sure.
The flow would be, where the loading dock is, and how they exit the property?
Yep, if you actually look at sheet
Okay.
TC1 of the black and white plan set,
The number?
sheet TC1. TC1, yeah, truck circulation.
Could you state your name for,
I'm Brian Pratt from CLD Consulting Engineers. If you look at this plan, this actually shows you, using the AutoTurn software, how a WB67, that's the full-size tractor trailer, it can enter the site from coming from Manchester or coming from Route 114.
And which one does it enter? Which entrance?
It's going to enter the larger entrance. Yep. So if you look, you can see the trucks in the street, and then you can see the outer limits of where the edges of the truck are going to swing in. So you can see from this plan that the truck can enter from either side. It'll go around the back of the building. It'll come up toward that secondary, the smaller entrance, and then it'll back into the loading dock.
So it's gonna come in here and then back onto the loading zone?
Yep.
Now, when it exits,
It can make that turn either way.
okay, but the question that I have, this is, on this one here, it shows that it's 28-foot width.
Yep.
Okay, so the truck comes out here, if the truck is gonna make a right turn,
Mm-hmm.
it makes the right turn, is it gonna have to swing into the center lane?
It'll go into the center lane, yeah.
Okay,
But not the oncoming truck.
No, it's not going to have to turn. It's easier for the truck to turn from a narrower driveway into a wider driveway. It's the turn coming into the site that was tricky.
no,
So they have
I understand, because it has to go further out.
Right.
But I guess the question that I'm asking is, would it be better off if instead of 28-foot, this was also 32?
It would.
Help
It would help
making
a little
the
bit.
right turn.
Yeah, and Family Dollar actually does usually want wider. So if the board was willing to let us go wider on that one, they would be
I mean, it
up
would
for it.
seem to me, since they're coming in,
Yep.
we're doing 32 feet from them to come in.
Yep.
That we should have 32 feet for them to go out,
Yeah, if that's something the board would consider, we'd go for that.
okay?
I think that we could easily make that change without having much impact to the site.
Well, follow up, don't you lose some shrubs?
It's only going to go over a couple feet. In that area, there's actually just a couple of
We're talking 4 feet.
trees. There's no shrubs in that area. So if you look at
Well,
the,
as I recall, that was one of the, there was a comment about somebody wanted another shrub, and the comment was the owner does not want to spend any more money on landscaping, so I don't think it was in this particular location. I'm looking at the landscape plan, and if you move it over, you've proposed,
it's just going to take up some of that sod area.
a tree over there in the corner.
Yeah, it's about 15 feet from the curb. So if we move that curb line over a few feet, it's not going to. It wouldn't change the landscaping in that area.
But we have not customarily, unless it's a 3-lane entrance exit,
Right.
ever widened it beyond what is shown on the plan right now. Because this is a strictly in and out exit and not a 3-lane exit entrance.
Right, I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure that I'd want to do that. But Tim, go ahead, you have a question.
When would you typically expect the loading zone to be used, tractor-trailer deliveries being made? What time of the day or night? Or
They don't know the specific time, but they only expect one delivery per week. And I think the truck actually stops in other stores, so it's going to depend on traffic. I'm not sure where their distribution warehouse is, but I'm guessing it's coming from a distance away and stopping at a couple of other stores. So
I asked the question because your traffic circulation diagram shows that the tractor-trailer needs to go through the parking spaces on the rear plus all of the parking spaces on the side. Now, that says that if you have customers or people parked there, that the truck won't be able to make it around the back of the building.
Those are actually old parking
Those are the old spaces.
locations.
These aren't the old, this is new.
Yeah,
This is
no,
new.
That's the existing
They
parking
didn't-
locations.
Well, then why is it on there then?
that was turned on because there was a request to turn on all the striping in Nast Road, so it was just all on the same layer. So sorry about that.
Extra information we don't need.
Confusing information.
Confusing.
Yeah, because I turned that striping off.
Told me to look at TC1 and I
Yep.
saw parking spaces.
Yeah,
That's
those
why
are the
I
old
asked
ones.
the
So, sorry about that.
While members are pursuing the plans, I'm going to reopen the public hearing. The public hearing is still open, and I'll ask if anybody from the public wishes to comment, reference this application. Yes, sir.
My name is Roland Floyd. I am
Come on
the
up.
butter in the rear. Sure.
Can you give me the name again, please, sir?
My name is Roland Floyd. I'm in the butter of the gray area over on the right-hand side by looking at the map. Still asking for screening on the back side of that lot. Don't know why we're getting rid of all that landscaping that's in that lot right now and why we couldn't use it on the back side of that, especially since we don't know, for one, where trucks are coming in, when the trucks are coming in, And then as far as light poles that, like you were saying, you know, can't be more than 6 feet, what's there now is blinding. Previous conditions, they are what they are. But what we're gonna allow, I mean, there's gotta be some sort of screening there, and there's not. Burger King doesn't have anything, and if there's any ideas that, what they're gonna do, I mean, on those guidelines, because I know the old folks home is there as well. I know nobody's here, but I'm not siding for them, but I am looking for my side. Which now, where the lights are, one of them is actually completely wide open. There's no screen on it like they do on the newer ones that kind of divert it a little bit. Haven't really heard anything about that either, but I know at one time they were saying they were gonna take all the shrubs and the trees that were there now and kind of donate them to Bartlett School. And we keep them on the site and donate them to the people that are gonna see those tractor trailers come around that building at, we don't know what time.
I think from the site plan, Mr. Plord,
Yep.
that a lot of the, I'll call it the perimeter trees
They're gonna remain.
are remaining.
Yep.
It's strictly the landscaping that was separating the drive-up from the building that is it being removed because that's in the place of the building they propose to build.
Yep.
As far as relocating that existing shrubbery, it's probably mature by 25 years or more now. Most of it is non-relocatable. Even though there are some specimen trees there, which I would love to have myself. But they will have to go to create this larger building than what's there. I want everybody to understand that this building is bigger than the Burger King that's there.
Yeah, and which would also probably call for more lighting outside, exterior, backlighting, which what I can see on the back side of the building from the drawings, it looks like there's some backlighting on this building, just by the little boxes that are there, and because of lighting that I do in commercial buildings, it looks like there's some backlighting that's gonna also be shining towards the rear of the building, and pointing at us on 23 and on 21 College Road as well.
Mr. Pratt, is there any kind of lighting density plan that you provided the board?
There is. It's in the plan set. It's just named sheet 1 of 1. It's after TC 1. There are 3 poles proposed. The poles are on the, if you're looking at the plan, there's 2 on the left side, and there's 1 in the front island near the right side. So all the lighting in the rear is actually going to be building mount lighting. And we do have a photometric plan that does show that it's the spillover onto the neighboring property. You know, they're full cutoff fixtures. They're dark sky. So it's going to
Mr. Plord,
definitely.
do you understand what the cutoff fixture is and that you wouldn't see the bright light shining in your face?
Exactly. I have seen them. Obviously, the public doesn't get as much as the board got. So that was the concern why I wanted to come tonight, was to see what we were gonna have on the back of that building for lighting.
So full cutoff fixtures on the back of the building.
Yeah, and they're going to be mounted at 15 feet high on the back of the building. If you look at the photometric plan, that rear property line, it's less than 1 foot candle that makes it to the property line. And there's actually, I think is it 6 feet, the fence there?
Yeah.
It is a 6-foot fence.
Yeah. So with that fence, the cutoff fixtures, I don't think the light is actually going to get up, because you're quite a bit higher. His lot comes up, so he's actually up higher. So I think the lighting issue, I think it's going to be a lot better, because I know there's actually a pole.
Yeah, I have a
right
question.
on
There's
your
a
property
pole.
line, right?
Yep,
That's
right
coming
there.
down.
Yep.
Yep,
Barbara,
we're
can
not
you wait
using
a
that.
second? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was what.
Yeah, there is a pole right there, and then there's another pole over in the other corner.
Yep.
And then, like I said, the other biggest concern was not ever knowing when that truck with tractor trailer was gonna actually pull into this parking lot
Yep.
and sit there and run his truck, because it's gonna be cold at night, and he's just gonna sit there idle, waiting for that store to open.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara?
That's my question. There are 2 poles on the back that are shown on EC1. So those are gonna come down. You're telling me that those big, because when I read your report, that sort of said the existing lights, I had this vision that you were planning on leaving those lights there.
Oh, no. Nope.
That's when I read the report, that's what I thought.
Okay, yeah, no, all the existing light poles are going to come down, so the lighting, those are tall lights, those are old fixtures.
Right.
So we're going to go with, more modern, dark sky compatible
All right,
fixtures.
Can I continue with lighting question then?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I guess I have a question as to what you're asking us to do for the lighting. If I'm hearing that the calculation, Brian, is 6 feet for the pole height, what is it that is being asked for these poles B8 and B7, 8, and 9?
Go back to the lighting plan. They're requested to be at
25 feet.
Where do you see that?
They're in the luminaire location
Oh, yeah.
chart.
Right.
The Z. is the
MH,
height.
maximum height,
Oh, max height.
15, and then 25 for the Bs. Bs are the poles.
Do you have any idea how high that pole is, that the poles that are there now? They're pretty high.
They are pretty high. I don't know the exact height, though.
Around 25.
You think they're about 25?
They're a good size.
And those poles are both abutting the businesses on either side. We don't have any
Right,
poles
no,
in the
the
rear.
location
so-
of these poles is much better.
Yeah.
Those current poles also have the fixtures at an angle.
Right.
So they project more light to the side, and so these ones being full cutoff, they'll project it a lot less.
I guess at some point, and this is not for this application, I need to understand our light calculations more, and I think I did miss a presentation on that, as to how our ordinance could say these poles should be at 6 feet, and we're looking at poles that are 6 feet makes no sense on this
Math
site,
error.
absolutely.
Lighting-
A mathematical error in the
The
development.
lighting ordinance really needs to be changed, and that's
Is there a
just.
math error in it?
From what Brian said.
I had brought up a lighting ordinance proposal
I-
last year, but
I-
it was a little complex and too much to handle at that point in time, so I kind of dropped it for the time being. But we do need to look into this ordinance, and I would say most likely change that this year, because we're just gonna run into this over and over. We've already, also, we're gonna get the same request from Cumberland Farms when they come in to do their redo of their site.
They talked to us
So,
about that.
Yeah.
They talked about the formula for the light poles being
Yeah,
not,
so it's a
All right,
little
okay, I just.
crazy.
If
All
I
right.
might explain, that original formula was written for large parking lots where the lights are in the center of the parking lot and not at the perimeter edges. It's meant more for the Hannaford and the Shaw's parking lots, where you locate the poles away from the property lines. And that formula was developed to create that distance. It was not meant to be utilized when you're doing what I call perimeter parking lot or perimeter site lighting, where it's located directly around the perimeter as a means of explanation.
Now, a condition could be added that these lights, since they're gonna be close to the property line, would have shields on the backside. That doesn't even address yours, because there's no light poles on that side. But, I mean, for any concerns of those abutters on that other side, I mean, that
Okay.
could be a
Isn't
consideration.
that a garage? What is?
That's a repair garage in a service station and a automotive parts store.
But we might be
That's right.
better off with the light on it as far as the police department.
As far as I'm concerned, you don't want the back shield on it. That's not a residential area. It's another parking area on the other side. Light is probably better.
There's actually a lot of existing landscaping that's gonna stay on
Right.
that side
It
as
is
well,
pretty.
so it's probably gonna block it anyway.
And there's another, I think it's either 5 or 6 foot fence on that side, like you said, and we're keeping all the landscaping along that chain link fence, so.
Tim?
To address the residents' concern about the truck traffic, I remember when we approved the Goffstown Hardware's application, we stipulated that they could not have trucks idling on Depot Street at night waiting, that they had to wait off-site or something similar. So we could add a stipulation like that to this project to waylay that concern as well.
That was a Cumberland Farms concern too, was the deliveries for that convenience store and the times of day that they would be allowed to come there, so.
We could make that a condition of our approval.
Well,
I think that would be
don't know,
acceptable.
But anyways, Barbara?
well, I'm, you have to I don't know, first of all, I don't know that the applicant has enough information to even tell us whether they can do that or not. I don't know how you'd monitor it. And you have to remember, there was a drive-through window back there that was open, how much? A lot.
A lot. I don't know when they opened or when they closed. I've never frequented it, actually.
It was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and
Oh,
it
it was
closed
bef-
roughly about 9, 10 o'clock. It never was like the McDonald's, which was like 24 hours now, but
But there's more 24-hour establishments today than there were 10 years ago.
Right.
So times have changed a little bit, too.
In other words, we don't roll the sidewalks up anymore at 6 o'clock.
We should.
Only in
Yeah,
the,
we should.
only in
We
the
should.
Goffstown Center do they roll up at 6.
Maybe 5:30.
Okay.
Any other members of the public have anything additional to say? Roland, you have anything else?
the only
Question?
other thing was, did they address, or are they gonna put more shrubs on the back side of that? It looks, I mean, trying to remember, I don't remember seeing any shrubs out in the back section, which abutted like my fence line, as far as like, if the shrubs are there, plow guys are least likely to take the snow and stack it with their loaders and stuff like that. So basically, it sits up against the fence.
I'd like to address that if I could.
Can you address that, please,
Absolutely.
Mr. Pratt?
Sure. We are proposing some spruce trees, 5-foot tall spruce trees along that fence that they're evergreen and they'll eventually grow up. But as far as, smaller shrubs or anything, we don't have a lot there. But the good thing about this proposal as to what's there in existing conditions is right now the fence is right on the back of the curb. It's literally right behind the curb. We're actually pulling that about 15 feet. So that whole back is now going to be grass. So the trucks aren't going to be able to plow the snow right into the fence. So that'll leave a good buffer. Since the last meeting, we actually, working with Brian and Megan, we actually increased the size of, we have 2 infiltration basins in the back now. And I'm working a little bit more with Megan as far as one of the conditions of approval to put a small outlet structure on it. So it'll actually infiltrate more and it'll control the peak flow off-site. So it'll help with some of the drainage issues down, I think, is it Roy Street? So those will actually be ideal snow storage areas. They're depressions, they're meant to settle out contaminants and whatnot. So likely the way that it's going to work is they're going to plow the snow right into those infiltration basins, and they might use that 15-foot strip from the edge of pavement to the fence for snow storage. But it should definitely be a much improved situation from what's out there now for snow.
Okay. Members of the board, do you have any other additional questions of the applicant's representative? Barbara?
I've sort of been scanning the response to the comments that was on her desk when we got here tonight. And there was a comment about an iron pin. Why would the applicant not be willing to install the iron pin until after construction is completed?
Just in case it gets destroyed. During construction, they are disturbing a good portion of the site. So we're going back out afterwards to do an Alta survey. So at that point, we'll set any monumentation that needs to be.
So a condition of this is obviously the as-built survey and the placement of the pin, that's okay?
Yep.
Okay, and then what about the sidewalk? I'm not familiar with what it takes. Comment 9 talks about, sounds like you're leaving the sidewalk, that's portions that are there.
Yep.
And there was a comment about trying to resurface it, and you didn't really want to do that. And I
Right.
guess you're doing an easement, do we still need easements along there?
We are granting a 6-foot sidewalk easement. What we're doing is we're replacing the sidewalk ramps along the driveway because they'll be ADA accessible.
You have to. yeah.
Yep, and the suggestion was that while we're out there, we resurface the sidewalk along the frontage. The applicant looked at pictures. He visited the site months ago, and he feels that it's in fairly good shape, and he'd rather not resurface that.
Okay,
Sounds like a small request.
sounds like a small request to me.
I have a picture on my phone if anybody would like to see what it looks like.
It's okay.
Nope.
If we visited the site.
I want to see the
John.
picture.
What is the width of the entrances now? as opposed to the 28 and 32?
Well,
proposed?
I think they're both,
Pat, can you address those, please?
I think they're both 24.
We're widening one, and one of them stays quite similar to the one that's there now. That would be the easterly-most one, stays pretty much where it is.
Correct.
The westerly one closest to the
Widening one.
College Road would be widened to allow the truck traffic to turn onto the site without going into the oncoming traffic lanes. Are there any other, just while we're doing a little housekeeping here, are there any other conditions noted in the response report prepared by CLD that any members of the board have a question about? So it becomes a non-issue here.
Alan,
Yes?
do we have a dumpster pad shown on the plan here that I'm not seeing?
It's on the right-hand side.
That's
Yep.
that gray thing on the side, on the right.
There's actually 3 dumpsters.
Are they gonna be screened?
Yes. There's fencing.
They're switching them to the other side. Over there
They're
now.
segregated dumpsters for recycling.
Yep, I believe so.
They have a well-established recycling program for cardboard and paper and product.
Would you point at Alan on this print for me just now? That's an HVAC pad. Oh, in the corners, that's what you're
Yeah.
saying?
They're staggered like that to allow the trucks to pass through a little easier.
And also to try to maintain the
Keep
tall
some of the
trees.
tall trees.
Yeah, there's
without
some
having to
tall.
cut 'em down.
Exactly, yeah, there's some large pines
Big
that
ones
buffer
over
to
there.
the apartments.
So we're gonna accept the snow storage on site?
Yes. Barbara?
I don't know why I'm on a landscape kick tonight.
It's okay.
Because I probably
We know
dropped
you.
out some places where we were not on enough of a landscape kick, and you notice it every day. And the burger, and while, and I appreciate the store wanting to have the parking spaces out front, I understand from a business perspective, that's what you want, but as overgrown as the site is now, the Burger King site actually never really looked as developed as it was, because it had the glass sort of sunroom type thing that came up. I mean, there actually was no pavement in front of the Burger King itself,
Right.
because there was the building, and then there was that little sunroom, and then there's a fair amount of green there that, and so so this site is going to look dramatically different from the front.
Yep.
It's gonna look hugely different. And I appreciate wanting people to know that it is a Family Dollar store there. But I am looking, I note that Conservation sort of wanted to add more landscaping to the front of the property, which is probably the one thing I'm looking at here. And I'm trying to figure out what exactly it is that's posed there, because you've got a 10-foot parking and structure setback.
Yep.
And it looks like you have little tiny bushes proposed there.
Well, there's 2 street trees, there's 2 autumn flowering cherry trees in that middle island, and then there's a bunch of shrubs. There's green junipers. There are
They don't even get to be 3 feet though, right?
Flowery cherry.
there's some woodgelias.
They're tiny. They're less than 3 feet. They're all less than 3 feet.
They're
In 5 years, we'll be lucky if they're less, if we can
Well,
still see them.
as planted. Let's see, the heights and everything are listed on the landscaping
Right,
plan.
they're all less than 3 feet. You've got 2.5 to 3.
Yep.
And these cherry trees are, you know, they never amount to much. So I'm just sort of looking at it going, is there anything that can go there that's bigger or more, or the junipers are year-round, right? I can't even remember what they are.
They're evergreen,
Yeah, they're evergreen, right? But they're small bushes.
and they're slow growing.
Yeah, they're not gonna be 3 feet, you know, in 5 years, like I said.
No?
Well, the junipers are 30 inches.
as planted?
Yep. So they're already pretty good sized shrubs. I'm not sure.
All right.
But I mean,
All right.
there is a pretty good, there are a lot of shrubs in there, and I don't believe the landscaping requirements require, do they actually require shrubs, or, I don't remember.
They require
I think it only
whatever we
requires
ask
trees,
for.
right?
I can't remember. I know that there is a requirement for, I believe it's 4 street trees,
Mhm.
and they've added at least that many.
Yep.
And actually, to add more street trees in that middle section, for example, I don't know that I would necessarily want to see that just because of sight visibility coming out of the driveways. And then also, on the other side, you've got the sign,
Talk right
and you
out.
want the sign to be visible from the street, and if you got trees blocking it there, then, that's
That
not gonna
size is
be.
pretty high.
We got all
Okay,
kinds
I mean,
of
I
issues up
understand the
here.
issues,
I-
I just,
Actually,
Robert
I
has the
did,
floor for a moment here.
I know.
that's all right, I'm done, nobody's paying any
Um,
attention to me.
I
Those are
will
gonna be
comment
little
that there's not
wimpy
a
bushes.
flowering shrub here, or bush, or flower here.
Cherry trees flower.
Cherry
Yep,
tree.
no,
the Weigelia's flower.
that's, or they've already come and gone.
Oh. Well, I mean, by the time this is constructed,
Flowering
it's,
today, Alan.
this, the landscaping might not even get installed until next season.
But Tim has been pounding his fist over here. I'm gonna let him go
Oh,
first.
go ahead. He's the vice chairman anyway.
Well, if I may, in the applicant's favor, Barbara, I would say that where we would like to see some planting on the front of the property, I don't think we should force the property to have to be screened from the road so you can't see the building by planting 5 or 6 foot high shrubberies in that island. I think the purpose of what's shown on the plan is to green up the island. However, I don't think we should require them to plant stuff that is gonna screen their building off from the road.
Way up here, you'd need it.
Still doesn't matter, it's an industrial, a commercial area, and I for one, feel that this is completely adequate.
And I did actually request that, because on the right-hand side of the building, there's an island that didn't have landscaping to begin with. It didn't have shrubs, at least, underneath the tree. And I had them move some of the ones from the side where they had them over into that, so that would sort of, make the front landscape islands look a little bit better.
And so it was after that the conservation made their comment about a bush where the term sod is on that side?
That may have been,
Yeah, okay, all right.
But you have to understand that this landscaping plan has no flowering plants.
So put some in, I guess, that's what Alan's trying to get the point across.
Well, the Weigelias are flowering.
That's a
know
shrub.
that.
I said flowering plants.
Oh, plants.
Plants are perennials. Phil,
Thank you. One of the other things we want to be careful with trees out on the front is the roots of trees are going to affect the sidewalk. And also we want to be careful, since we have a tremendous amount of utilities in that road, that the trees that go out there aren't types of trees that we have problems with roots going into water lines and sewer systems.
It's not an issue because Mass Road has been, is now, and will be forever under construction.
You can thank the sewer commission for that.
yes,
you could always fix them after that, right?
Exactly.
but
Should've been at CIP the other night.
I'll put my vote in for more flowering plants in the front, so that there is something other than green evergreens in the landscaping.
I just have a question for
Yes.
clarification. What's the difference between a shrub and what you're asking for?
Flowering plant,
You want like
It's
some
like-
daylilies or something?
yeah, daylilies, that kind of stuff. Perennials that come up,
Oh, okay.
Flowers.
Specifically perennials.
that
would you-
don't grow high, but add, I'll call it people color and plant shape to a site.
Multicolored daylilies.
Some the yellow Stella d'Oro.
And they're
Now, I'm
inexpensive.
sorry that, I didn't mean it to get this far.
For,
Well, you got it started.
along that line, I mean, I requested, but they turned it down, to have them do some planters instead of the bollards, which I thought would have brought some nice color to the front of the building. But, the applicant, the owners, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a lot architecturally which added quite a bit of cost. So the building is gonna look much, much nicer than any of their other buildings. And they have, basically done pretty much everything that everyone's asked. So, you know, a couple things that they don't change. The bollards, that's their standard. The way they handle their, they must, I'm guessing, I don't know from experience, they probably had somebody drive through one of their stores at one point. So,
Could be insurance, too.
Tim?
Barbara brought up point 9 in the CLD report about the sidewalk appears to be in fairly good shape. I don't think we should allow the developer to decide on the condition of the sidewalk. I think the condition of the sidewalk should be decided by the Public Works Department, because they're ultimately gonna own that sidewalk, maintain it. If it's not up to standards for them from when the project is completed, I think that they should have the right to decide if that sidewalk needs to be repaired or not. We should not have the owner telling us that they think it's in good shape.
Well, it
That
is-
says fairly good shape, and that they're qualifying their own statement, so.
Well-
I think that the business of the sidewalk should be at the discretion of the Public Works Department to decide.
Megan, you want to respond to that?
I just looked at Brian's picture on the sidewalk. I didn't focus on that when I was out there. I was looking at other issues. I mean, based on the picture, it looks like there's just some basic block cracks, you know, or longitudinal cracks across it. And there's some spalling of it along the curb line.
My guess is it was the milling of it that was, it could probably be coated out, but it's milling it down.
Yeah, it's not, you know what I mean? Brian had said, could it be milled down enough, a new 1-inch overlay put on it? I mean, that'd be more than enough.
It's cheaper to tear it out and pave it than it is to mill it. That's
milling
ridiculous.
is what the expense is.
What's generally done, is the sidewalk owned by the town or by each property owner? And along all the, who's supposed to maintain it?
But since they are restructuring the elements of the entrances in both sides, you're gonna have an element in the middle they're not touching, is what they're saying.
right.
And as part of their development package, they're gonna put, realign the curbs, because they have to do that for radii and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they they're tearing everything up on this site except for the perimeter trees? Why aren't they doing the sidewalk? That's my question.
Well, because the sidewalk's not in bad shape. Like Megan said, yeah, there are a couple cracks, and then along the curb, it's a little cracked there, but we don't have to, we're tying back into it. We don't have to disturb it, we don't have to change it, we don't have to change the front curb line. So there's about 80 feet in the center that
It's not gonna be disturbed, and it's not gonna be taken up.
right,
Okay.
right.
Sounds fine to me.
But it could, Mark, it could be considered an off-site improvement that is required by the board as part of their conditions. A lot of projects have off-site improvements that are
Mhm.
part of their conditional approvals. And if that sidewalk is deemed to be insufficient, then it would be considered a condition and an off-site improvement, and they would do it as part of their approval.
On their
What,
site.
if we forced them to do it and they did it, then who would own it from then on?
The town.
Town owns it.
It's currently a town sidewalk.
Town owns it now.
There's no legal easement, but there's a prescriptive easement, I'm assuming, that the town can maintain it and replace it and do what they need to do. We're just formalizing it by giving the town a 6-foot wide easement
Mm.
just along the back of that sidewalk, so make it a little more legal.
So you're telling me that the property lines don't?
The property line is in the middle of the sidewalk.
Okay. I just looked, I didn't miss that one. Okay. That clarifies the fact that the location of the current sidewalk is not in the right-of-way.
Partially.
It's partially in the right-of-way and partially on private property.
Okay.
Easement clarifies the long-term maintenance and accessibility of that sidewalk.
And that's the reason why we need it.
That's the reason why we need it.
And the applicant doesn't have a problem granting the easement. We've already filled out the draft easement, and
Okay.
it's been emailed in to Brian for his review.
Okay. After hearing this discussion, is any further comment or questions from the public? Yes, Roland.
Still have an issue with the plowing. Store opens up. That front parking lot is all gonna get pushed to the back because they're gonna know they don't have trucks, and those guys are gonna know that they need to open that parking lot up. And there's no place to put that snow on the left side on that front parking lot. There's no place to put the snow on the right side of that parking lot. They're going straight around back with a loader, and they're gonna stack it up against that fence. it still hasn't been addressed. I mean, I haven't heard it, that they're not, I mean, I know he said there's a flat area and there's a big green space right there, which is an ideal place for, nice 9-foot plow to pick up his blade and get it right up onto that sidewalk, because I've done it before and I'd do it again. And I would definitely plow my snow straight down both those sides, because there's no plants that I would be responsible to fix in that section right there. And I would put my loader back there and I would stack that snow to give the store the right of all those parking spaces on that front lot. Because there's no place to put it. What are you gonna do? You're gonna damage those trees on the right side, and on the left side, and there's no place out front to put it. So where are they gonna put it? Besides haul it off site, and the town isn't gonna go over there and enforce that they haul, when they haul snow, and when they don't haul snow, they're gonna make them just keep stacking it. And the other thing is there a town ordinance? And as far as I know, because I've already checked, because I had a complaint about another commercial building in the area, is there an ordinance that basically says, and I know this is a hard fetch thing right here, but how this building would be maintained as far as cleanliness? If you've gone by Burger King, like she said before, Burger King was very well kept, always well groomed. Family Dollar, if you've seen any of them around, and I'm not downgrading anybody that owns one, but if you've seen a Family Dollar, there's garbage in the parking lot, there's stuff blowing all around the parking lot. Is there any ordinance out there right now with the town that basically says, if this turns into a trash nightmare out back because of this loading dock and all that garbage gets blown around, is there anything that the town can do besides say, we're sorry, we'll send a letter to the person that owns the building and we'll see if he responds? Because I have one that's already on record that basically is in the same neighborhood, and they send a letter, nothing gets done, and there's still 3 letters on file. Not to be brought up here, but is there any ordinance regarding this? Because if you look at the Family Dollar in Hooksett, it's not really what I want to see in my backyard.
Only if it's a health hazard, I would think, Al.
I don't believe there's anything in our ordinances that allow us to address that, and I think it has other areas in the community that have to address that issue. It's not us here at the board, in terms of our site development regulations. I would suggest that you're probably already doing everything that's possible,
Exactly.
and I don't believe it's in our jurisdiction at the moment.
Just was a question, that's all it was.
Maybe something for us to consider in the future. Brian, any comment on this subject?
Only if it gets to the point where, you know, it's considered a nuisance, then, I mean, or a health hazard, then, you know, the town, like he stated though, I mean, it's, the towns will send them a notice and, say, you know, please clean it up, and then if they don't do it, then it's a notice of violation with, you know, some more, threats, and then it's a potential fine, I guess, if they, you know, if it's determined that it's that bad, but that would have to be a determination made by
Okay,
myself.
all right. So there's really nothing we can do here at the planning board level?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from the public? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. Members of the board. Barbara?
Snow storage.
Yep.
There, I mean, I need to tell you, driving through that Burger King site, there is like no green space between the pavement and the property edges on that site as it is now. I don't have as much of an issue with the snow storage on site. I know Conservation Commission doesn't want any snow storage on site. My only issue with the snow storage is more of a drainage issue. And that there needs to be adequate storage, and if it's causing a problem, then it needs to go off-site. But, I mean, practically every site in Bernardville has this issue, and I'm not downplaying the abutters' concerns in regards to this back fence, but, I would think that the property owner would need to manage the snow storage. I mean, I don't.
Can I just make a suggestion that, perhaps the 12 stalls on the left-hand side be used as potential area for snow storage. I mean, they don't need, we've already sort of determined they don't need all this parking per se. It's the minimum requirement per our zoning ordinance, so that's what they're gonna do. But they could use it in the wintertime as snow storage.
They do it anyway in all the
And
parking lots.
That
it's
makes
what a
sense.
lot of people do. So, I mean, that really would be, I think, plenty of room to, to store snow.
And you're suggesting that if they did that, if it became a problem where they did not have sufficient parking on space and they were using it for snow, it's a policing action to get them to remove the snow to put those spaces back into use. So it's a judgment call by the property owner, unless notified by the town otherwise. Phil?
One thing though, if you look at the TC1 that we looked at before, okay? I think the snow storage area is gonna be determined by the required travel of the 18-wheelers coming through here. So by allowing that, and I guess the question that I have is, I'm looking at this drawing that is constructed, right? And the parking spaces that happen to be on here or happen to be in that layer, and they're the old parking spaces.
Correct.
So I guess I'm having a little difficulty to see how these transpose, this pattern transposes onto this, which you new parking spaces. So the point I'm making is that the parking spaces, what's there for snow storage, is gonna be determined by what's required for the 18-wheelers to travel through, and I don't think we have that information.
All the new striping is actually on TC1 as well. The old striping is just the faded back stuff. The new striping is the bolder
So
stuff.
all these spaces on this side should be, are extra spaces that are not going to be impacted by the truck traffic?
Yeah, correct. The truck
Okay.
can drive completely in the aisles. It doesn't need to drive over any of the
So
proposed.
that might be then sufficient, so I guess what we'd have to look at, if it got to the point where all these were filled with snow, and you had no place to put the snow and it started impacting the other spaces, then you'd be in violation of your site plan.
Right, and I mean, don't forget the whole back corner, as you're looking at the plan, the bottom left corner, that's a pretty good area. That's a pretty good size area, and there's an infiltration basin there that's 2 feet down,
But the
so.
concern is by piling over there that you don't, and who owns that fence?
I believe it's, this property owns the fence.
So that fence
Yeah,
belongs to so if
Yep.
you damage the fence, you're damaging your own property.
exactly. And, you know, as is right now, like I said before, the fence is right on the back of the curb. So when they're plowing, they're, you know, running their plow along the curb, which is pushing the snow into the fence as they plow. We actually have 15 or 20 feet from the edge of pavement to the fence line now. We pulled that whole back in. So as they're plowing, they'll plow it off to the side. 15 feet is plenty that snow isn't
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
hit the
no, I
fence.
understand. I mean, you know, if you got a 1 or 2 inch storm, that's not an issue.
Right.
Once you start getting where you're beyond that and you start having a 6 to 12 inch every 3 days,
Right.
then it becomes a little different issue.
I remember that.
All right, Megan, you had a comment?
No, I was just gonna say, I'm a little torn with the snow storage on the back, because in some sense, if you have a small amount of snow, it's fine, it makes sense, it goes into the low areas, it'll melt. If you have a winter like we had last winter, and you have mountains of snow back there, what can happen is half of it will freeze over and become, you know, kinda ice, but the other thing is, think of when spring hits and we have mountains of snow that take forever to melt, and then if you have spring rains, and the area's not gonna function like it would've, because it's got a frozen ice block of. So that's the only thing I'm worried about, you know, and there's no way to control that. If we say, oh, you can put a little snow, but don't put too much, you know what I mean, there's no way to really control that, so
Subjective.
I'm just a little torn with, should we say don't put any back there, cause I don't know. You know what I mean, it makes sense to put some back there, but if you get like we had last winter, that'll be there come spring, and then those areas may not function correctly.
Understood.
And if they don't function correctly, they're just gonna flood their parking lot, so they'll go out and fix it. So it's a self-correcting
It
issue.
will flood their, it's not like it's gonna.
Yeah, it'll just back up into their parking lot, and if they start seeing puddles, they're gonna go out and remove the snow if they need to.
In this case, the snow storage, as long as it does not affect the neighboring property, would be the Family Dollar site's issue. And if it got to the point where they filled up all those spaces on this one side here, they all got filled up with snow, I'm sure that once the parking is impacted and their business can't function, that they're gonna bring someone in to remove the snow and
Right.
remedy their own problems.
Right.
But providing they're not pushing snow up over the fence onto the neighboring lot, any of that kind of issues, that's where I think snow storage comes into play.
I can't see them doing that. I mean, you never know what somebody's gonna do, but it's a 6-foot tall fence. I can't see somebody trying to dump it over the neighbor's property, you know.
All right,
It happens.
It does.
okay,
It does.
so winter's 6 months away. We'll worry about it next November. I think we've,
Beat this horse enough.
All right.
no, but
But
we're
I've
at
got
an
some
issue here.
questions on conditions.
Yes, Barbara.
This, Brian, your report was forwarded to
Yes.
you? All right, so if I look at the conditions of approval as set forth in paragraph 7, do I understand that the 7 show utility pole symbols on sheet C3 still needs to be done?
Correct. Yeah, that was a comment that I received. Megan just got it back
Okay.
to us a couple days
All
ago,
right,
so.
and the crushed stone and fabric, that still needs to be done?
Yep.
And,
I'll
all right.
revise the detail sheet to show that the stone is gonna be in the bottom of that basin. So it provides more, stormwater storage area.
All right, and 10 is the label. I'm looking at 9 and 11. And those, to me, look like they are substantive. So I need to ask what's going on with 9 and 11.
Megan?
9 was just, at the, little ponds that they have, the pipe was supposed to be a little higher than the bottom of the pond to provide some, like, a sediment trap. One had like a 0.3 foot difference, you know, so it provided whatever, the 4 inches right there. The other one was very minor, like 0.1, so I had suggested, I guess I was questioning, is that number correct? And I said, you know, provide some spot shots so it's clear what the bottom of pond elevation is. Because sometimes you'll have a contour line, but the bottom of pond's supposed to be a few more inches lower, so I just wanted spot shots on both bottom of ponds.
Okay.
And then 11, that's something we had talked about that he's gonna work on. I was just providing some suggestions, but what I'm saying in that comment is right now, a 12-inch pipe leaves the pond, the little ponds. Instead of like having just a wide open 12-inch pipe, I'm asking for a tiny little, I call them DIs, a small little structure with a small bleeder pipe so that you could bleed out a small amount of water. And then what happens is once the water reaches the top of the capacity of the little pond, it'll spill into a grate and then go out the 12-inch pipe. It allows it to be held there a little longer, and store it and try and bleed it out a little more slowly.
Is this an issue?
We like her suggestion. We're gonna replace those head walls with the drop inlets like she suggested.
Okay.
So I'm gonna make the changes per her comments.
What page of the plan is all that on?
It's not, it's a condition of the,
You can probably
Well,
see it
but-
on C3.
C3 would be the best, yeah.
What number?
C3.
C3.
This shows an infiltration basin, yeah.
Yeah, it shows the
Where's
contours.
the beginning?
And those are detention ponds of sort?
Yeah, they're infiltration basins, detention, infiltration. And you can see the contours, so you can see the shape of them. They basically take up the additional open space that's in those areas. We did increase those by quite a bit from the last pass. And, yeah, the changes that she requested, it's really more just labeling and then replacing that head wall. I'll add a detail to show what the little outlet structure is gonna look like. But
Well, how do you locate that tree that you show on the green plan right in the middle of the detention pond?
It's up in the corner.
No, that's, this, are you talking about this right here?
Oh, the green plant, that hasn't been updated. We moved that shrub a little bit.
Well, we have a whole lot of updated plans, that are not what they're supposed to be, and I have a lot of problems with asking questions, and I feel like I'm stupid because I don't have the right plan.
I apologize.
Okay, all right. I'll get out my hammer here in a minute. In the instance of consideration of this plan, obviously, staff will take and review any comments members of the board have in terms of locations of materials or items of concern on the final plan, and I'm sure Megan and Brian will assure us that low retention areas don't have landscaping in them. Okay. But secondly, we at a point where we can take and cut to the chase here and talk about item number 4 in our decision-making process, which is strictly about waiving the regulations to allow the parking to be closer than 10 foot to the property line. And I believe that's only in one instance on the west side. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's just one instance where the parking lot is at the closest, and it's at the westerly entrance, and it's the first few parking spaces on the right-hand side as you enter the site. Does anybody have any concerns or comments relative to that waiver request? Seeing none, then I would like to see if we can have a motion on that waiver request, stating the specific circumstances noted in item B.
I'll make a motion to waive the development reg section 8.5 on this application in regards to the parking space setback, finding that strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant and waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and the intent of the regulations.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none,
Can I just make a
yes.
I probably should have
clarification
taken,
comment?
yeah,
It's not a parking space setback, it's a distance to side lot
oh,
line
all
for
right,
the driveway.
distance to sideline. And just, so it's clear, because frankly, B might fit this site a little better, but there are circumstances relative to this site plan that make it appropriate for the waiver to carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations, so.
Okay.
Thank you for that
Is-
correction, Brian.
Is a motion that's been slightly amended. Would you accept that amendment, Mark?
Yes.
The minor revision has been also seconded by Mark. Moving this forward, is any further discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Okay.
Opposed?
Opposed?
When opposite, any abstentions? Motion carries. 5 to 1. Okay, the second waiver is to allow the 3-lane driveway per section 7.3.4 of the zoning ordinance in order to keep trucks from entering oncoming traffic in order to turn right onto the site, or into the site. Members of the board.
I would suggest that we do both entrances. For continuity, since you have the same truck traveling through in and out on both of them.
The discussion that we heard was that incoming traffic requires a wider entranceway because of the truck turning radius. Outgoing traffic does not need it.
It depends on how far you want the truck to go over into the other lanes, and the only reason I'm bringing it up is so that it doesn't have to travel that much further over into the center lane that we have there and possibly going into, because if you have a long nose that's going in there, it's gonna require a longer turning radius to come out of it to make that turn, and it could possibly go into the opposite lane, the far lane. And we're talking, to me, we're looking at a safety issue. It's a very heavily traveled area. We have sidewalks there. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic, and we have a lot of businesses
Now,
there.
what's across the street?
Thank
Bartlett
you.
School.
Thank you.
I'm not going there. Barbara?
Yeah, I'm not. I'll tell you, I don't have a problem with widening the other entrance. I quite frankly have a problem with the 3 lanes. When you provide people with a right-hand and a left-hand turn lane with only paint distinguishing the lanes and no curb cut distinguishing your entrance or your exit, such as proposed with the 3, that's a free-for-all going in and out. Even the Y, who has that set up with an island, has issues that they have to mark it so people know where to go. So I understand the issue with the width, and, you know, I'm not sure whether the 32 feet requires the 3 lanes, but, you know, if he wants to widen the 28 to 4 feet, that's fine, but you're encouraging people to sort of stack up and pull out at the same time, and I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think 2 lanes for an exit out of there is good. So.
Now, other members of the board? John?
Question, because there's no diagram of what the street's gonna look like after it's finished. Is there gonna be a turn lane in the center, or is it gonna be just 2 lanes of traffic?
No, there's 3 lanes. There's a
There's 3 lanes
suicide
now.
lane in the middle.
There's a left and
There is
right-hand
there's
turn
gonna be a
lane in
turn
the
lane
middle
in the
of Mass
center.
Road in that section.
There is a center lane.
There's a center lane.
I'm trying to picture it, because
It's Penardville, that's center lane.
yeah, but it's not,
Wait a minute, don't we have?
it's marked now, or it's,
Yeah, but the truck's gonna go over into the center lane
To make
and
the
very
turn.
possibly go into part of the other
gonna be
lane.
tough. I agree, it's,
No,
but
you
it's
have an
tougher.
engineer that stated that on the outgoing traffic, it does not go into that oncoming traffic
I
lane,
understand.
okay?
If it's wider, it makes the turn easier for them, but
Right,
they can
Depends
get
on the
out.
driver too.
Right, right. Some of them are real good, some of them not so much.
That's right. And it depends on the vehicle,
Right.
the tractor. A long nose versus a cab over has got a different radius
Okay.
in front.
We need a consensus on the drives.
Right now, we're talking about a single entrance, and we have not modified the plan per se, with any restrictions requesting that he widen the second access point. That's the proposal in front of us.
And
So if someone cares to make a motion, please do.
I have one more question on that.
Yes, sir.
The truck is not gonna be coming in the new side that's gonna be wide, it's only gonna be leaving that. Right. And it needs that wide point, so it will be able to take a right out of there.
Right. And realistically, I
Doesn't need
anticipate
it.
them taking left out of there. They're probably gonna come from 114. I don't expect them just thinking of, where they'd have to
Probably
drive in
true.
Manchester. I'm thinking they're gonna be taking a left out of the site, which is a much easier movement.
Yeah, okay.
So I anticipate they'll be taking the right in. That's why we need the wider lane, and then
Over
taking a
here.
left out.
Taking a left out of here with a tractor, trailer,
That'll be easy.
it will be very easy. That will be easy.
Yeah.
But taking a right out of
Right.
there
Right.
will be more difficult.
More difficult, but.
If I was a
doable.
truck driver, I would come down, 114.
We have delivery trucks at every traffic light on Mass Road
Right.
without difficulty. Keep that in mind, please.
Yeah.
Members of the board, I'm looking for a motion. I can't make one, or I would.
Why can't you make one?
Chair can't make a motion.
Chair of the
I like
ZBA
Bob's
does it.
point about the 3 lanes.
Since when, since a chair of a committee can't make, well, that's a discussion for another day.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly where we are, that's why I wouldn't,
I-
I'm not making
I'm
a
not-
motion.
Well,
Are we on number 5?
We're on number 5.
You wanna widen it with only, but keep 2 lanes.
Okay, then I'm,
Going
No,
out.
we're going to widen the westerly entrance as depicted on the submitted engineered plans.
Right.
The easterly entrances would remain as shown on his submitted plans, which is strictly a 2-lane in-out.
Okay,
Would it be okay if I read the language in the zoning ordinance that talks to that issue?
Oh, getting confusing now.
Now,
It's real quick, I'm sorry. It basically says, no driveway shall exceed 28 feet in width, except where the planning board requires a driveway of 3 lanes or more as part of the approved site plan. So basically, unless the planning board does
finds
this,
3 lanes, it's
they have to do a
28.50.
variance or keep it at 28.
All right, I'll make a motion, in accordance with zoning ordinance section 7.34, to require and approve the plan for a 32-foot entrance on the westerly, entrance/exit on the westerly side of the property to accommodate 3 lanes as shown on the plan.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I'd second that.
Motion.
I just want to deal with that
Motion by Barbara,
entrance
seconded
Yeah.
by,
and get it done, get that one done.
okay. And we have a second. Any discussion on that motion?
Yeah, does that specifically require the 3 lanes?
Mhm.
Perfect. As long as that was in her motion, then yes, that's great.
Bill, any comments? Any other members have comments? And hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Abstentions? Motion carries 5-1.
So in order to, Brian, or what you're telling us, in order to modify the 2-lane entrance exit shown on the easterly side of the plan,
You would have to
The
require
applicant
3
would
lanes
need-
on that side as well.
would either have needed to apply for a variance, or we would have to provide for 3 lanes.
That's correct.
So I am not willing to make the same motion for the east side, so somebody else would need
Well, you guys aren't requiring, right? I mean, you're not asking for it even.
No, I mean, if
No?
if you want it, I think they'd be happy to do it. I would like to add that we do have sloped granite curb on the entrances, on the flares, so that if a truck does need a little extra width, they can drive up over the sloped granite without damaging their tires and without damaging the site. If it was straight granite, it would be a lot more difficult, but I did this sloped.
As long as Megan's sitting behind you, your truck drivers would never drive over our granite curbing, would they?
Only when you're not looking. Moving on to number 6.
No, Jonathan.
Item 6, which is to grant a conditional use permit of the zoning ordinance of increments at
Sure.
section 8.4, exceptions and findings of following conditional use permits provisions are which? What action does that require, Brian?
Approval of a conditional use permit to grant the lighting
So we're talking about lighting poles
poles, yes.
in the 3 locations at on the west side and the front, 1 pole at the front. Those are the 3 poles we discussed. But also recognizing that the other fixtures, building mounted, have downlighting and shields and whatever, but the pole lights would, from security standpoints, would not be required to have back shielding. Is that somewhat correct?
I think it is, but I think John has a question.
Okay, John, do you have a question?
I still have a question about this easterly entrance and exit.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to just go back to that for a second. I'm just trying to picture myself in the front of that building parking, and I want to head, and I end up not going to the westerly exit, I go to the easterly exit. And my car is gonna be, and a few cars here, maybe he's gonna be taking a left out of there. And that's gonna be, it's possible, I mean, how possible is it that 2 or 3 wanna come and they're gonna be blocking this one arrow coming in? It seems that, just for sake of keeping cars, getting cars out of the parking lot, not holding them back, I don't see it unreasonable. I don't see trucks coming in that side, but I don't see it unreasonable to have 1 in and 2 turn lanes similar to the west side. I'm just trying to think of sitting there and instead of going out the left side to take a left, you go out the right, you go out the easterly one to take a left, and 2 or 3 of you do that, and you're gonna be blocking that entrance.
The easterly driveway, John, on the exiting, you can make a left or a right-hand turn. You're not,
He's talking about a queuing issue.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a queuing issue, correct? And I'm just
Inside the
thinking that,
parking lot.
we should be so busy on Mast Road.
well,
Seriously.
Are you concerned about cars, or are you talking about the truck now?
Oh, he's concerned about
cars
cars.
exiting. We want to I'm,
From the queuing lane, if you're heading west and you're in the middle of the road, you have the choice of going in the first entrance or the second one, just as well as you do coming easterly.
No, but this is
Talking about
queuing
getting out
on
of the
site.
parking lot.
He's talking
Queuing
about
on site.
queuing on site.
He's looking at the parking spaces in front of the building and saying it is foreseeable that more than one person might be trying to exit on the easterly side at the same time. And in fact, given the dimensions, if you had more than two people doing it, it's quite likely that car 3 would block the exit, the entrance lane coming in.
And one of those may want to take a right, and he's gonna be sitting in this line, waiting for the one in the front to take that left, and I'm just seeing a backup happening. If it's busier than we,
If I think it was that busy, they'd be very, very happy about their business.
well, that's why I wanna
If there
go
was that
back.
much traffic going in and out. Because I think if they did a traffic study, the number of cars coming in and out of these stores.
I understand, but that's why I would
Okay.
consider revisiting a 32-foot wide entrance or exit to put 3 lanes there also. That's the only reason I would consider that.
Okay.
I'm not, traffic getting in and out of this street, I know from experience of 10 years trying to do it sometimes, it's very difficult for me to take a left coming out of my garage because I'm dealing with traffic heading east.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult coming out, so sometimes I'm sitting in the front of my business, and it's very difficult for me to get out and take a left into that traffic.
Yeah, but when they finish the construction on Mass Road, it'll get better.
Should I say my thing?
Yeah.
Is that a cue?
I'm just, yeah.
No,
I think you, yes,
I
Phil.
think he has a point, because you try to come out of Johnny's, getting gas, try to make a left turn on Mass Road.
Somebody
You s-
make a motion then.
I'll make a motion to widen that to 32 feet and allow 3 lanes there, also 2 outs and 1 in.
Okay, and when you made that motion, you meant to apply in accordance
east
with, on the east side, in accordance with zone ordinance 7.34, whatever, the same thing I did.
So they're probably gonna need another waiver then for the sideline.
Just,
Well, if you wanna do it, you gotta
isn't,
put it in your
isn't
motion.
Picturing
gone,
driving, doing it, you know, and sitting behind someone that
You know,
isn't a great driver.
I'm not gonna support the motion. I think the 2-lane exiting is the problem as it is. And, you know, some days you wait on Mass Road to make a turn, and some days you get in and out without a problem.
okay, well, with no discussion until we have a second to the motion. I haven't heard one. Huh?
I thought we had one.
No?
Sorry.
I'll second it.
Phil seconded the motion. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I would defer to the applicant. If they want it, great, they should ask for it. But I don't want to require it of them if they don't
Well, our,
think it's
our original, benefits
their business plan.
our original submittal, I believe, had 32-foot entrances on both sides. Their typical prototype, they do want these entrances wide. We narrowed them up to meet your regulation, so they're gonna probably like it. As far as the traffic, I don't think it warrants having a turn, you know, a left turn and a right turn lane, because like the chairman mentioned, there's not a lot of
No
traffic
justification.
coming in and out of
None
the site.
whatsoever.
So for the truck movement, I like it. For the actual queuing, I don't think the queuing will be a problem. If somebody sees cars waiting, typically they'll seek an alternative. So if there's cars waiting at the easterly entrance and somebody's pulling out of their spot, they'll pull to the westerly entrance. So I don't think queuing's going to be an issue. It could, you know, you never know. But
Unless they're coming down and they miss the other entrance and they need to go in that entrance.
Better to have it than want it later, that's all I can tell
Almost
you.
10 o'clock.
Okay, now, any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Opposed.
Nay. Motion fails. 4-2.
so sticking with the 28-foot.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, that's what democracy is all about. Now, let's go back to this lighting issue, number 6. Members of the board. And any motion should include all A through G.
right, I'll make a motion to grant the conditional use permit for section 8.2 of the zoning ordinance in accordance with the exceptions of section 8.4 on finding that the certain sections of 14.4.1 are met, and those sections are as set forth in the report from the town planner, sections numbers A through F. I think you're missing a B, Brian.
Yes.
Which include, and Gail, you can get it right from his report, the use is specifically authorized in the ordinance as a conditional use. If completed as proposed, it will comply with conditions and standards established for this use. The use will be compatible with the neighborhood and adjoining or abutting uses of the area. It will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular or pedestrian safety, and it will not have a substantial adverse impact on the appearance and visual quality of the surrounding neighborhood. It will also be adequately serviced by public utilities and community facilities and services of a sufficient capacity to ensure proper operation.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Any discussion on that motion to grant the conditional use permit as motioned? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Abstentions? Motion carries 5-1. Let's move on to item number 7, which is site plan approval with conditions precedent and conditions subsequent as outlined in the report from our town planner, and any other conditions which you would like to add to that motion. Members of the board.
Question.
Yes.
Brian, did I hear you see that number 12 has already occurred?
Yes.
What about 13? Any word?
Yes.
13 has also occurred?
Yes.
Okay, so there would be under this. And if the board was to consider this, there would be a condition, I would assume from discussions, saying that snow storage on site is not to interfere with edge fencing on site or use of abutting properties. But as I recall, that fencing was a specific concern from abutters. And it's my understanding that everything else that you've set forth in your report needs to be done.
And so that motion would include the fencing, Barbara, but the fencing motion is that it's acknowledging that the fencing as shown on the plan is owned by the applicant, and that the repair of any damage to that fencing is the obligation of the applicant?
Well, I mean, they own the fence. I think the issue with the fence is the snow storage on the site. Is it to interfere with the edge fencing in any way on the site? So.
Okay, so that's in specific reference to the snow storage.
Right, yeah.
Do you want to have on there the language regarding having like an overflow snow storage area in that parking area, or just
No?
leave it?
I think what she's saying is it's up to the jurisdiction of the applicant.
That's their issue.
Oh, engineering escrow,
Oh. But of $1,000?
just,
I don't know, I just wanna comment that if there's an engineering escrow, that all engineering review bills be paid.
But there is no engineering.
There may be, I don't remember. There are some that are fee-based, if they're small enough, they're fee-based, do you remember?
I believe this one did.
It's 1,000, right?
I
Okay.
believe this one
The
did
So
have
there's
standard-
1,000.
I think we paid
That's
1,000.
the base amount that you
Yeah.
pay, and then I have to calculate all the time I spent, and if 1,000's enough, they get their money back, and if not, we have to bill extra. And I don't know what it is, cause I haven't pulled it together.
So
So that all
a
the
condition could be worded that all engineering review fees shall be paid by the
Either by
applicant.
escrow or by the applicant directly.
So you've added that to your motion, Barbara?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Phil. Any discussion on this approval and subsequent amendments to the conditions 1 through
So it's now
11,
it's
acknowledging that 12 and 13 have been satisfied?
with a new 12 and 13 having just been added.
Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll move the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Abstentions? Motion carries 5-1.
And for the record, I'd like to state why I'm opposed, because I think we have incomplete plans. We have had a lot of discussion here about screening and detention ponds, and none of it's on the plans, and we just voted for something without it being on the plan. So I stated that for the record.
Motion is approved.
Can I,
No further comment allowed.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Please coordinate any final changes with Brian and other staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll discuss with you later.
Okay. But I don't disagree with you.
Well,
I don't think it's a point topic here. It's a point of, I think we touched
discuss it.
upon.
You want to discuss it on the record? I'll discuss it on the record right now.
Please.
I feel that we have an obligation to help applicants get projects through, to help our tax base and help things, but we also have an obligation to approve a project that is properly presented on the paper in front of us. And I think we rushed through this one today in an effort to try to get this done, and I think we were remiss in our obligations.
Okay. Any other members have comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Phil. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.